African perspective.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning and welcome once again to Channel Africa. You're always welcome to be with us. You are part of this family. In fact, you are the most important part of this family that continues to give you that African perspective. Thank you, Asanda Beta and Pete Ndoro. That's the morning team on Africa Rise and Shine. And they were just giving us our first look at the latest news and views of the continent and the world over. It's now 6 minutes past 9. Central Africa time, and it's time for On the Move with myself, Palisa Tau, and Benjamin Moshatama. We're with you for the next 3 hours, all the way to 12 p.m. Central Africa time, and of course we're giving you those news, views and entertainment from the African perspective. So tune in on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app, and our audio bouquets, DSTV channel 802 and OpenView HD channel 628. It's been 22 years since the beginning of what we know as the Maputo Protocol. In fact, this year is the Maputo Protocol's 22nd anniversary. If you're unaware on what that is, that's the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women in Africa. And fortunately, this protocol for 22 years has been working quite hard to try and make sure that women's rights are observed all across the continent. However, because of some of the negotiable clauses in the Maputo Protocol, we see how many countries all across the continent have had reservations in the protocol. So essentially, they've chosen what to take and what not to take from the protocol. And this has affected real women on the ground and the rights of women all across the continent. We're finding out this morning how to make women's rights non-negotiable through removing some of those reservations in the Maputo Protocol. We'll be chatting in the first hour of the show to the Program Officer of Legal Equality at Equality Now. That is Jigwiku Karugu, who'll be joining us in the first hour of the show. We then move into the cubicle. That's our workplace feature, and we speak about why you're being overlooked for that promotion. I mean, what are you doing wrong? You show up on time, you meet all your deadlines, you even volunteer for extra tasks, but you're just not moving up that corporate ladder. We find out about why that could be with Namibia-based HR expert Lisa Matumola in the second hour of the show. That's another great friend of the show. We move on, of course, and wrap it up with our personal finance feature, that is Money Matters. And this is a conversation that's been debated for many, many years now, and many songs after. We're still speaking about the idea of 50-50 in relationships. And we know now, I think in modern times, that it's not just about money, but also the emotional and physical burden that happens within a relationship. What does a real 50-50 look like in practice? We'll be chatting about that with Dr. Mavis Mazura, business science and performance specialist, in our final hour today.
Hey, we're looking forward to all those topics from human rights to money issues and also to issues relating to work matters. That's what we're all about here. Diversity of real life conversations that we have. Remember, you can stay in touch with us to be part of those conversations on +2763 406 9126. That's where you can text us. Hey, voice note us on that WhatsApp number. And also you can find us on all social media platforms at Channel Africa 1. That is the magic handle.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walivyofanya hiyo kampeni, serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Bina l'export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Balisa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Who's the musician? Fato. Who's the technician? Who's the producer?
A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice.
Our morning here on the Move. July 2025 marks 22 years since the adoption of the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of women in Africa. This is also known as the Maputo Protocol by the African Union Heads of State Assembly. And over the past 2 decades, the protocol has played a really pivotal role in advancing the rights of women and girls all across the continent. However, despite this progress in the past 22 years, its full promise remains unfulfilled for millions due to shortfalls in ratifications, domestication, and effective implementation by many African governments. We're chatting about this hour of the show, and we're exploring how those reservations are affecting real women on the ground and why it's time to reclaim these rights as non-negotiable. We're speaking to the Program Officer of Legal Equality at Equality Now, Gishuku Karugu, who's joining us to speak about the Maputo Protocol and why it should be non-negotiable. Thank you so much, Gishuku, for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's speak about what the Maputo Protocol is, first of all. And I'm sure even though this is in the advancement of women's rights, many women across the continent are only hearing about the Maputo Protocol for the first time.
Yes, so the Maputo Protocol, as you mentioned, is a protocol to the African Charter on the rights on human and people's rights on the rights of women. And it was adopted in 2003. And it is a unique document because it is by Africans for Africans, seeking to protect and promote the rights of women and girls in the African continent. And what's really unique about the document, unlike other UN, for example, UN documents like the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Violence Against Women, is that it does speak to the unique cultural and religious experiences of women in the continent. For example, the Maputo Protocol seeks to protect women from harmful cultural practices. For example, like the practice of female genital mutilation, which is recognized as a harmful practice, the practice of forced and early child marriages. And interestingly, the Maputo Protocol also requires or allows for women to enjoy what is called a positive cultural context, meaning that it acknowledges that we as Africans have unique cultures, cultural practices, but within, our enjoying those cultural and traditional practices, women should also be allowed to have a positive and safe experience in enjoying those cultural and traditional and religious practices. Beyond that, the Maputo Protocol also protects the rights of women and promotes the rights of women, for example, older women, women in conflict settings, also providing for women within those settings to be part of peace processes, the rights of women when it comes to inheritance, within marriage, in divorce and separation processes, and also protecting women from discrimination, both in the work setting, but also within educational settings.
Well, this protocol has worked really hard to advance the rights of women and girls across the continent in the past 22 years. Let's speak about these 22 years. In what ways has the lives of women and girls improved through the Maputo Protocol?
Thank you. So, yes, the Maputo Protocol, like I said, has provided for a lot of protections for women and girls around the continent. And for the countries that have ratified the Maputo Protocol, and we have 45 ratifications so far, 10 countries are yet to ratify the protocol. It has meant that member states, country states, have put in place laws, policies, and mechanisms for the promotion and protection of women within their countries. I can speak to my country, Kenya. The ratification of the Maputo Protocol meant that we now have very extensive laws protecting our rights. We have a Sexual Offences Act, which speaks on the different types of forms of sexual violence against women and the protections that are afforded to women under those provisions. We have an Anti-FGM Act, which is also seeks to protect women and girls from female genital mutilation. And then these are not laws that are particularly unique to Kenya. We have similar laws in other jurisdictions. Also, we have, several constitutions that also speak to equality and non-discrimination of women in those particular countries. And so the Maputo Protocol has really advanced the rights of women and girls within the continent, ensuring that even within, like I said, our cultural and traditional context, there are protections within our constitutions, but also within legislation and policies in the various countries that have ratified the protocol.
Now, this Maputo Protocol is a legally binding document to countries who have ratified the protocol. However, there are many instances where countries and states choose not to be bound by specific provisions of the treaty, and these are called reservations. Let's speak a little bit about what these reservations are.
Sure. So a reservation is known, if I'm going to speak on its definition, it is basically a unilateral statement which seeks to limit the legal a country's legal responsibilities to implementing a particular provision. And what I mean by that is, if a state has a reservation on a particular provision, it means that it is not legally bound to do anything to ensure that that provision is applied within its country. And so currently we have 9 countries that have reservations to the Maputo Protocol. And these are Algeria, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mauritius, Namibia, the Sahrawi Arabic Democratic Republic, and South Africa. And so these reservations basically limit the legal application of those provisions. And for example, in Uganda, they have a reservation on Article 14 of the Maputo Protocol, which speaks to reproductive health rights, or reproductive health and reproductive rights. And specifically, we can look at Article 14.2c.
Okay, Gashuku, I'm sorry to cut you there. I need to go on a quick break. And I actually want us to actually start over and speak about the reservations that exist in these different countries, what exactly they are, and how they limit the rights of women within those particular states that have reservations on the Maputo Protocol. We'll continue speaking to Gashuku Karugu after this break to continue unpacking the Maputo Protocol, the countries that have reservations, and the advancements of women's rights on the continent.
Stella Longwe, Pamalonje.
Palitu sokoma pano pamalonje. Kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa, kusangalala, kupeza moyo. Akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino. Pano pamalonje. Ndiyetu apa tindikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala mdziko la South Africa. Ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatusati kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwinobwino kwambiri. Chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwinobwino.
Ayi, aziwoneka chiliyonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa mwaka. Akuti kumenya yonse. Aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje, panthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Benjamin Mushatama and Palisatawo on the move.
It's 22 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. This is a very serious conversation we're having today, an important one because there are many legal instruments, legal tools that we have here continentally in Africa that are aimed to actually look at human rights and also how we're delivering to the ordinary African. But the big issue is that we don't know much about them and how they affect us. Today we're looking at the Maputo Protocol, and it is a very powerful instrument. However, it's almost like what we call the peer review mechanism, which is an African instrument that has been introduced by the African Union member states, which is also kind of fostering the same concept. What these tools are supposed to do is to make sure that our human rights are taken care of, that we see transparent governance on the ground. And we're looking at this from a woman's perspective, this Maputo Protocol, which is a groundbreaking African women's rights treaty, which marks its 22nd anniversary. That's why we're speaking about it. There's a huge response from Equality Now, and it speaks about that it actually should be a non-negotiable, and it argues that a lot of these reservations, but also issues around women's human rights in the Maputo Protocol are not really adhered to, and therefore we are failing many families and many women. Joining us from Equality Now, we're joined by Gashuku Karugu, who is a program officer of legal equality at Equality Now. Let's expand on that particular point that you were trying to explain on the reservations of the Maputo Protocol to reflect the broader and political and cultural barriers. Can you elaborate on that, because we had to go to a break?
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Palisa. So, as I was saying, a major issue when it comes to reservations is one. Usually reservations are a clear indicator of a lack of political will to protect women under a particular provision, but also as a whole. And the reason why I say this is when we speak of human rights, we say that they are indivisible and interdependent. Indivisible meaning none is above the other, and interdependent is they are all connected. So where we are limiting one right, we are limiting another right. And so, for example, if we're saying that, like in certain jurisdictions, they have reservations on the age of marriage, and they don't want to restrict the age of marriage to 18. So if we're saying that we are going to limit the age of marriage, then what does that say about the right to education? If we're saying a girl as young as 12 can be married off, then that would also affect her right to education. It would affect her future right to work. It also exposes her to violence, and discrimination within the household, outside of the household. And so we're saying that a reservation restricts more than just the provision, the rights within the provision that they apply to. They restrict and affect all of those rights. So we've talked about like the political will, but then also when it comes to the cultural barriers, we have some reservations that are very explicitly based on religious or cultural beliefs. So, for example, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic has specifically stated that its reservations are based on the fact that the articles that it is reserving contravene Islamic law. And so we have a very express and clear example of where religious barriers are also affecting the rights of women. And so this is very concerning because reservations mean, or we said they limit the legal application of those rights within the country, meaning that the countries will not put in place the proper policies, mechanisms, legislations to protect women and girls from discrimination. I said, that has far-reaching and very wide impacts on their rights in general.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you highlight that because, many of us don't know around these legal instruments that are very continental and agreed to in a higher level in our government structures. I mean, when you think of something that I've cited as well, the peer review mechanism is something that many Africans don't even know how to hold their governments accountable to. I think it's the same with the Maputo Protocol. How do we actually hold our governments accountable to these protocols? What do we do as ordinary citizens to make sure that these are adhered to?
Thank you. So, firstly, we would have to talk about public education and awareness. I think that's like the first step when it comes to holding your country accountable. So ensuring that not only do the general public, our communities know what the Maputo Protocol is, what their rights are, but also within government offices and structures, there is a lack of an understanding on the Maputo Protocol, what it says, and the country's obligations within the protocol. So ensuring that they are aware of that even within our judicial systems. We do a lot of advocacy work. I know there are a lot of organizations, even within South Africa, that do advocacy work. So, calling out governments where they see that there's been a violation. Also, providing member states with technical support where there might be gaps in their knowledge and understanding of, how to properly implement these rights, being there as civil society organizations to support. But then for individuals, you could always start with your local or the courts within your local jurisdictions, where there is a violation by your government, by individuals of human rights, taking them to local courts and following the local court system until its end. So that might be the Supreme Court. And if you're still dissatisfied with the decision of the local courts and tribunals, then there is the option to go to the AU reporting mechanisms.
Okay.
So, for example, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights does listen to matters of human rights violations, and individuals and civil society are allowed to take complaints to these mechanisms.
Yeah, we've run out of time. Thank you so much, Chishuko, for joining us here on our show and helping us on this one, because we need to understand these large-scale issues from an individual perspective, from a citizenship viewpoint. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
That's Jishoku Karugu, who is a program officer at Equality Now within the Legal Equality Division. That takes us to 9:30 Central African Time. Let's find out what's happening in our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And a very good morning from the sports desk. I am Musibudi Makura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. So South Africa opened the T20 Tri-Series campaign with a 5-wicket win over Zimbabwe in Harare yesterday. Now chasing 142, the Proteas slipped to 38 for 3 inside 6 overs before debutant Ruben Herman as well as Devalt Brevis steadied the innings with a 72-run stand for the 4th wicket. Now, Brevis blasted 41 from just 17 balls, including about 5 sixes, while Herman also anchored the chase with a composed 45 runs. George Lindy, meanwhile, starred with the ball, taking 3 for 10 runs. This as Zimbabwe were restricted to 141 for 6, despite a fighting 54 not out from the captain, Sekanda Radza. Now, South Africa will next face off with New Zealand on Wednesday as the Tri-Series continues at the Harare Sports Club. Meanwhile, Ben Stokes once again inspired England to a 22-run victory over a stubborn India on a 10th and a final day of the 3rd test at Lord's yesterday. The captain delivered a monumental shift with the ball to claim 3 wickets as India were bowled out for 170 runs. In an epic conclusion, the host side had victory in their grasp until nerves were afraid by the outstanding defiance from Ravindra Jadeja, now chasing 193 for a win. India were 112 for 8 when Jadeja was joined by the number 10 Jasprit Bumrah. Now they were together for almost 22 overs until Stokes, who bowled tirelessly from the nursery end, drew Bumrah into a pull to mid-on. Now Bumrah's contribution to a stand of 35 was 5 from 54 balls, and still Jadeja resisted, and this time around with the last man Mohammad Siraj. Now Stokes refused to stop the bowling. He delayed tea was taken with 30 required for India. Now the captain Stokes also says his bowling performance in England's final day win over India at Lord's was the toughest of the dark places he has been during a test match. Now Stokes was also named the player of the match for his all-round performance in a dramatic 22-run victory, including 2 wickets on the final day as the Tourists were bowled out for 170 all out. On to football news now. Orlando Pirates head coach Abdeslam Wadu believes that his squad is starting to blend and also understand what is needed by the technical team. Wadu was speaking just after watching his team held to a 1-1 draw against Cyprian champions Pavos FC this past weekend. Now this was also Pirates' second international friendly in the European pre-season tour in Spain, this after losing 2-0 to Bolton Wanderers. Wadu shares more details on what they were trying to achieve from that game.
Yes, of course, we have decided to change the plan because this team, you can say that it's one of the strongest team in Europe in terms of building, lot of rotation, and sometimes this team can put us in trouble. So we decided to play very high to prevent this team from building. It worked. I'm very happy about the plan, but we didn't only did this pressing. We only played, especially in the first half. We had the control, the possession, and we can see that our team step by step is getting better. They start to understand exactly the expectation of the coach.
Now, analysing their first 2 matches on the tour, Wadu also says both games are helping them with the content they need as they continue their preparations for the new season. He also talks about the importance of reacting differently to results compared to how the fans are handling it.
But the first game was very interesting in the contents. You know, of course we conceded in the set pieces, but a lot of interesting things. And now today it was only the continuity of the work that boys are doing, and step by step I know that this team will come stronger and stronger. I'm very confident about that.
And finally, Manchester United manager Ruben Amorim was joined by players Bruno Fernandes as well as Diogo Dalot at Anfield to pay tribute to Portuguese compatriots Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva on behalf of the Old Trafford club. Fernandes as well as Dalot were international colleagues of Jota, 28 years of age, and all part of the Portugal side that beat Spain to win the UEFA Nations League in June. Jota as well as his 25-year-old brother Silva, who was also a footballer, died in a car crash on the 3rd of July in the Spanish province of Zamora. Amorim, Fernandes as well as Dalot laid some flowers among a vast amount of tributes which were being paid outside Anfield. That's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Anaitwa Daniel Etienne Benson. Huyu alizaliwa mwaka 1997, ilikuwa Mei 14, na anajulikana kitaalamu kabisa kwa jina la muziki BNXN. Haya, ni mwanamuziki huyo, ni mwimbaji kutoka nchini Nigeria, mtunzi wa nyimbo na mtayarishaji wa record label. Ameshirikiana na Rema kwenye wimbo huu. Rema vile vile ni msanii kutoka huko nchini Nigeria.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
9 to 12 midday Central African Time. On the Move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushatama.
Thank you for that sports update, Musibudi. Let's get our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Palisa, and a very good morning to our listeners. In our top business story at this hour, the government of Botswana says it will allow its Bula currency to depreciate by 2.76% over the coming year. This is in an effort to enhance the competitiveness of domestic goods and services and also protect foreign exchange reserves, which have shrunk steadily since 2018, reaching a record low of 5.2 months import cover in February. The Southern African country reviews its exchange rate twice a year, adjusting it upwards or downwards through a crawling band exchange rate regime under which the Bula is pegged. Senior economics lecturer at the University of Botswana, Obunya Khalibudzwe, explains why the country needs to change its exchange rate policy.
And the combination of slow economic growth, low export revenues, increase in imports, tend to put a downward pressure on the domestic currency. And the current exchange regime is such that the value of the Pula is determined not by the market forces of demand and supply, but rather it is determined by the government. So they have been putting it at a certain rate, but now with the foreign exchange reserves decreasing significantly over the last 3 years, this makes the exchange rate policy intervention unsustainable.
Uber drivers have been gathering at the e-hailing services head office in Parktown, north of Johannesburg, South Africa, ahead of their protest action against the company. The disgruntled operators say they're unhappy about a number of work-related issues, including alleged changes to Uber's commission percentages and unprofitable trip prices. E-hailing driver Awelani Mashete says the drivers feel that Uber is now exploiting them due to the increased tariffs.
We are having a problem with the price, the price that they are doing now. Uber South Africa is using a dynamic pricing, which they take a lot of commission, and then the Uber drivers are getting less in their net pay and then in their pay. So it means if you take a trip, them, instead of taking 25% fee, which we all know, and those who started Uber, they have agreed on, it's not longer that 25, it's 48 to 50%, meaning that you go half-half with the Uber now.
Zambia's State Mining Corporation is pushing for the U.S. to grant the country exemptions from proposed copper import duties. This came after the U.S. President Donald Trump announced that his administration would impose a new 50% tariff on all copper imported into the U.S. from the 1st of August. Head of the Zambian Consolidated Copper Mines, Gagenenwa Muyangwa, says the U.S. tariffs could undermine a major infrastructure initiative such as the Lobito Corridor project, which aims to facilitate the export of critical raw materials, particularly copper and cobalt. He explains the other adverse effects that this will have.
So essentially, what this will do to any company that's mining and refining within the United States is that it will push their prices up and they'll get more revenue. So this is the mining companies and the refining companies in the USA simply just playing along with politics on the basis of greed, because it does not make any sense. Besides them getting higher profits, there's going to be shortages of all these metals within the USA. And when they are going to be made available, they're going to be more expensive. So it really doesn't make sense.
China's economy has grown at a slightly faster pace than expected in the second quarter, showing resilience in the face of U.S. tariffs. Data released by China's National Bureau of Statistics this morning showed that China's gross domestic product has grown 5.2% in the April to June quarter from a year earlier, slowing from 5.4% in the first quarter. Analysts say the U.S. tariffs remain a major headwind for China, but that Chinese policymakers won't feel the need to offset this if economic growth remains strong. The founder of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, says the social media giant will spend hundreds of billions of dollars on building huge AI data centers. They will be named after figures from sci-fi and mythology like Prometheus and Hyperion. The BBC's Dilly Jamali has the details.
One cluster will be almost as large as the island of Manhattan in New York City. Meta has made most of its money from online advertising. Now it's scrambling to compete in developing so-called superintelligence, technology that's smarter than humans. But the multi-gigawatt data centers announced by Mr. Zuckerberg Monday will burn through electricity at a steady clip. Critics argue the environmental costs of powering such data centers dwarf any benefit.
And now for a look at the financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,527 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 20. Kenya, 128 shilling 54. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 16. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 56. Russia, 77 rubles 98. In India, it's 85 rupees 89. China, 7 yuan 16. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 90 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,358 and platinum at $1,408 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et votre 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Falisa Tawo and Benjamin Mushatama. the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa.
Here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show. Lifestyle, news, and opinion. Most important, because that matters always here. So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Lady, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Show called The Upside here.
This is Justin Vibes featuring Diamonds of Gwija and Azul Serene. Uzozi Sola is the name of this particular jam. You tuned in to On The Move right here on Channel Africa. We're speaking about the Maputo Protocol, and that was quite an interesting conversation to find out about the advancements of women's rights all across the continent for the past 22 years. This is known as the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of women in Africa. This also includes the rights of women and children. But it is quite worrying that 22 years in, we still see many countries who have reservations in the Maputo Protocol who are saying, yeah, I agree that women's rights are important. But you see over here, this one doesn't really sit well with me. So I'm not going to fully give women this particular right. I'm going to choose which rights women should have and which rights women should not have. And as we heard from our guest, Kashuku Karigo, is that if you stop women from having one particular right, that has a huge domino effect on a number of other rights that they should be having. So yes, I think I stand with the Maputo Protocol to say, yeah, actually, if you want to stand for women's rights, you have to stand for all of them and not say, yeah, this one they can't have, but these I'll allow, because that is still taking women way back. And it is quite an anti-gender thing to do, and it does really take back the rights of women all across the continent. We are still far behind as women on the African continent, and it's important to stand up for our human rights and our rights as women, but also stand for the Maputo Protocol, which really does try to fight and pivot the world of women's rights here on the African continent. You can let me know what you think about that one. I'm actually quite interested in the types of reservations that the different countries have, but I'll let you know about those a little bit later on. For now, it's 9:50 Central Africa time.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palisa and Benjamin.
We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Debokhole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Lifestyle, news and views and opinion. Most importantly, because that matters always, eh? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Marcia Bonsido and I am contributing as a co-host on the show Upside News.
Hey guys, Debokhole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Lifestyle, news, views, and opinion. Most importantly, so catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Debokhole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So
Broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations.
Stimela Sasezola is the name of this one. It's 9:55 Central Africa time. We're taking a look at the Maputo Protocol here, speaking about women's rights on the African continent and the reservations that some countries have within the Maputo Protocol across the country, and how that's also taking us a step back when it comes to women's and girls' rights on the continent. And before we wrapped up our conversation with our guest Kishugu Karugu from Equality Now, Benjamin asked a very pivotal question. What do we do as everyday people who are just maybe learning about this Maputo Protocol? How do we stand up for women's rights? And it doesn't matter, it's not just the women that should be standing up for women's rights. All people should be standing up for women's rights. And maybe I'm asking myself, how do you stand up for something you don't know? So I'm going to look at some of these reservations that the countries have within the Maputo Protocol. And essentially, reservations just means that they agree to the protocol, but there are certain points within the protocol that they have chosen not to adapt. So, for example, Ethiopia and South Africa has reservations that permit unregistered marriages, and this, according to the protocol, exposes women to increased risk of child marriage and denying them legal protections in marital disputes. Namibia is failing to recognize customary marriages, which means that women within the customary marriage sector lack legal safeguards in divorce or inheritance, and this is a situation that remains unaddressed. In Algeria, the state's reservations allows for exceptions to the legal minimum age of marriage, and this enables child marriage. Also in Algeria, they have reservations against Article 14, which outlines reproductive rights and have fostered conditions that perpetuate child marriage, obstruct women's access to divorce, and deny rape survivors access to safe abortion. And these are just some of the reservations that are present across the African continent. And if your country is amongst those, mine is South Africa, if your country is amongst those, that means that you have to read up on this and then go ahead and say something, do something, educate those around you, educate both men and women and everybody in your surroundings about these reservations that are present in your country, and find out how you can fight against these reservations for the promotions of women's rights all across the continent. I think it is quite important indeed. There are more reservations that I have for you. The SADR, that's the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, has reservations to Article 21 on inheritance that limits widows' rights as a state requires them to be explicitly named in the will, and that leaves many widows economically vulnerable. These reservations also block widows' rights to protection from degrading treatment and undermine the custodial and remarriage rights, reinforcing patriarchal control and exclusion. So, look, it is important to think about the fact that, you're like, okay, well, they are agreeing to everything else. That means that's good, right? But as our guest, said, is that, it's good that they're agreeing to the majority of these, but those that they say no to also impacts the rest of women's rights. So if you agree that, child marriage should happen, that also, as, she explained, that also takes away the rights of this particular child to maybe education, to work in the future, maybe even to some of their health and reproductive health rights before the particular age of 18. So it's important to not look at this from a one-dimensional view and say, it's okay, they've got most of them, but to look at just one right could actually limit a woman's access to all their human rights. It's 9:59 Central Africa time. We're wrapping up and going into the second hour of the show. We've got our great news team with us this morning, Olen Nzinzi with our news update. We've got Musibudi Makura, who'll be giving us our sports in the next hour, as well as Buntle Headbush with our latest in business news. So stay with us as we go into the next hour of the show. More conversations taking place on the other side. Olen Nzinzi, let's get our latest news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Palesa. Looking at your top stories, Nigeria's late former President Muhammadu Buhari's burial expected later today, and U.S. President says he is not done with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Nigeria's late former President Muhammadu Buhari, who died in a London clinic on Sunday at the age of 82, will be buried in his northern home state of Katsina today. The Nigerian government has also declared today a public holiday to honor the former president who died in London. Katsina State Governor Dikko Rada, who returned to Nigeria after being with Buhari's family in the British capital, said the funeral initially expected yesterday had been delayed due to logistical reasons. Even though he is a former president, there will not be a state funeral in line with the Islamic teaching. Islamic cleric Abdullahi Karaganawa said Buhari will be buried as quickly as possible in a simple ceremony. The Electoral Commission of South Africa is expected to present a report on the 2024 general elections to Parliament this morning. The report will detail the Commission's achievements in relation to managing the polls, including successfully integrating independent candidates into contesting the national and provincial elections. Busi Bupila reports.
In its report, the IEC says it was able to make the smooth transition necessitated by a new electoral system which saw independent candidates contest general elections for the first time. Amongst the changes it was required to make were the rewriting of the ICT business applications, including the candidate nomination system and the results system, amongst others. With 70 political parties contesting alongside 11 independent candidates, the intensity of competition was unprecedented.
Law enforcement agencies from Namibia, South Africa and Botswana met recently in Khentsi, west of Botswana, in an effort to ensure complete compliance of motorists on the Trans-Kalahari Corridor. Under the auspices of the Trans-Kalahari Corridor Joint Law Enforcement Operation, the three countries meet annually on a rotational basis to improve services within the corridor, maintaining law and order by dealing with criminal activities and ensuring total compliance on the route. Pilani Sibihe, the spokesperson of the 15th Trans-Kalahari Corridor Joint Law Enforcement Operation, described the exercise as a success, but has decried lack of harmonization of protocol and procedures being used in the different countries.
The 15th Trans-Kalahari Corridor Joint Law Enforcement Operation, otherwise known as the TKCJLEO, has come to a successful end after a hectic 3 days of operational activities at Junction 44 near Khantsi. This annual JLEO is carried out by the TKC member states being Namibia, Republic of South Africa, and of course Botswana. The operation was as big as we had envisaged, and more than 300 operators from the three countries took part. Besides encountering TKC users who were on the wrong side of the law, I'm very happy to indicate that most users were compliant and very cooperative.
The World Health Organization has recommended a twice-yearly injectable drug as a tool to prevent HIV infections. It will be an alternative to pills that have to be taken daily. The WHO recommendation at the International AIDS Conference in Rwanda follows the U.S. regulators' approval of the use of the drug, also known as PrEP. Dr. Will Nutland is a co-founder of the HIV activist group, also called PrEP.
The good news about the injectable formulations of PrEP is that we know that sometimes when PrEP doesn't work, it's because people forget to take the tablet. So an injectable formulation takes away the ability for us to forget because we've already had the injections in our body and the PrEP is there.
Lastly, President Donald Trump says he is not done with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. He said this after giving the green light for the new transfer of arms to Ukraine. In a telephone interview with the BBC, Trump also endorsed the NATO alliance, having once described it as an obsolete.
I'm not done with him, but I'm disappointed in him. Bill, we had a deal done 4 times, and then you go home and you see he just attacked a nursing home or something in Kiev. I said, what the hell was that all about? I think NATO is now becoming the opposite of that. I do think it was passed. And it was very unfair because the United States paid for almost 100% of it. but now they're paying their own bills, and I think that's much better.
Recapping on your top stories, Nigeria's late former President Muhammadu Buhari, who died in a London clinic on Sunday at the age of 82, will be buried in his northern home state of Katsina later today. Even though he is a former president, there will not be a state funeral in line with Islamic teachings. Now, for any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
5 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You are listening to On the Move, giving you the best of what's happening here on the African continent, giving you those African conversations that happen on a daily, and we try to unpack them here on our show. Remember, you're listening to us on DSTV Channel 8, OpenView 628, on www.channelafrica.co.za, and also on the SABC Plus app. Well, what's coming up on the show today? Have you ever felt like you knew the trajectory of your career, and somehow, somewhere, things took a little bit of a still? It's like, no, it's supposed to be a turn, Ben. No, but it just went still. Nothing actually happened. You were like, you know what? This is where I thought I'd be in 20 years into my career, 10 years into my career. But I'm still doing the same thing that I've done since I started doing this thing. What is going wrong? What am I doing wrong? I'm always on time at work. I'm actually taking that extra mile when it comes to tasks. I'm the first one to lift up my hand and volunteer. Hey, I even bring cake to work on my birthday. What's going on? Why am I not being noticed on this one? That's what we're going to be talking about in the cubicle. What practical steps can you actually take that you can actually have self-advocacy in the workplace? I know it's a difficult one because at times you think the work speaks for you, but when you listen to HR experts, they're like, nah, no, that doesn't work for you. Everyone is trying to do a good job. It's not just your work that speaks to you, but it's also about relationships that you create in the work environment. It's about the perceptions that people have about actually your performance, but also how you are able to actually self-advocate for yourself. We'll be speaking to Lisa Matomola, who is an HR expert, joining us all the way from Namibia, and that should be a practical one for today.
Absolutely. You know, if you've tried everything, you have to get a little bit more information to know how to make your way up that career ladder. And of course, that is why the In the Cubicle feature is here. We're going to be wrapping up with our Money Matters feature. It's a contentious issue that's been spoken about for about a few decades now. And this is 50-50 relationships. Is this just an idea or is it practical? And it's always sparking countless debates. But today we're going to take a look if this actually works in practice in our Money Matters feature, especially in this day and age where we speak a little bit more about some of the other burdens that are there in relationships that aren't just financial, that are emotional, that are physical, that create a balance. So is it actually possible to have a halfway split, balanced relationship? We'll be chatting 50-50 in the final hour of the show. Do join us. We are at Channel Africa 1 on most of our social media platforms like X, like TikTok, like Instagram and YouTube, but we are simply Channel Africa on Facebook. We are streaming live on some of our platforms, Facebook and Facebook and YouTube in particular. So go on our live stream, see what we're up to in our studios. See Benjamin with a fresh haircut. Yeah, he's got a fresh haircut today, so you'll be able to see that as well. And of course, let us know where you're tuned in from, where in the world you are part of the Channel Africa family, and engage in the conversations of the day. Ask questions to us and the guests as well, so you can get that African perspective. Once again, that's at Channel Africa 1, but you can also have your voice heard in the studio. Send us a WhatsApp message or voice note on +27 63 406 9126.
Africa Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel África. Adivinha só, a Channel África quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel África está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
C'est notre invitée du jour, la belle Aïna Mwenze. Elle est là, certaines l'appellent Boss Lady.
Bonjour Monsieur Jolino.
Parlez-nous un tout petit peu de vous.
Je m'appelle Boss Lady Aïna. Je mets l'accent sur le nom de Boss Lady parce que je mérite cela après le travail fait. Et c'est une rémunération en titre de la personne que je suis devenue aujourd'hui. Épouse et une mère de 4 garçons. Et voilà ce que je peux dire pour l'instant.
Et vous vous êtes lancé dans le business, comment c'est venu?
En tant que mère et se retrouvant dans les pays étrangers, particulièrement en Afrique du Sud, je me disais que laisser les enfants sur la charge des travailleurs ou d'une bonne, ça serait pas très intéressant. Je me suis dit, bon, je dois essayer de m'organiser et trouver un emploi que je peux faire.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Balisa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Hey, you could be putting your best foot forward on a daily basis in the office, but somehow you feel invisible and you actually want to go somewhere in your career. How do you actually do that? That's what we're speaking about in our cubicle feature, where we look at, walking the professional career in a way that actually maximizes every potential that you have. And this is where we look at what's happening in the workplace. You might be showing up on time, you're meeting your deadlines, you're the nice guy who's also making coffee for the boss. So why are you being overlooked for that promotion? According to career experts, the answer isn't always about performance. Sometimes it's really about what people think about you, the little things that you also do that might not actually be good for you even in the workplace. But most of the time you are doing the right things. It's just you're not very good at self-advocacy in their work environment, and at times you must stand out for yourself, be the one that stands aside, and you the one who actually is self-promotional in the workplace. There's no other way to actually put it. But how do you make sure that you stand above the risk? Because everyone is trying to also get that promotion. We're going to be speaking about this one in the cubicle feature with Lisa Matumola, who is an HR expert based in Namibia. Lisa, welcome on the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Hey, Lisa, let's talk a little bit about this one. It's not an easy one because everyone is competitive in the workplace. And at times you are putting your best foot forward, but you feel invisible. You feel that your work is being acknowledged, it's being seen, but it's not being seen in the way that you want to be seen.
So thank you very much for that. You know, as managers, as HR practitioners, or just anyone, coaches, mentors, they often mention in terms of how it's not just about delivering the results. I mean, there are people that are very, very good at their work. They perform. And I have some friends who feel, you know what, I'm good at what I do, but they find themselves still in the same position. And why is that? You mentioned in your introduction, because they are not advocating for their work. You know, that adage that says your work must speak for itself. It's kind of 1960 something. We talk about about building a brand in the workplace. How am I advocating? Am I present at the table? You can have a seat at the table. Are you visible? There are people that often say that you don't want to leave a meeting without saying something, because that's how people notice you. Are you contributing? Because when people also hire you, they're looking for those who are creative. Some jobs really want you to have that stakeholder engagement, because it also depends in terms of the type of work that you have, the level where you are. As a junior, perhaps you can still be observing, just trying to see how people do the work. But the higher you go, you need to make a decision. You need to contribute. You need to question. At times, it's not even about making decisions or sharing and voicing out what your opinions regarding a specific project is.
I'm so surprised that you say that, the fact that we're always referring to the concept of let my work do the speaking, let it speak for me. It's kind of an old concept, right? It feels like it's something that you are putting in the category of invisible behavior, and that can actually hold you back, right, as you are saying. But what then do you do while you're trying to actually let the numbers do the work for you? What must you be doing to also have that outstanding personality that is showcased in the workplace? Because the reality is, Lisa, not everyone is an extrovert. Not everyone feels they can come out there and shine in a meeting. Not everyone feels like their opinion will be heard in a stakeholder environment. What should you do to actually put yourself out there? Because you also don't want to say something in a meeting and everyone gives you a glare and says, well, what is he talking about?
Thank you very much for that good question. And I can give an example. I recently coached a client. You are being a manager, but because sometimes the work speaking for itself, meaning that you want a salary increase, because at times employees feel that I'm doing all this work, but I feel underpaid, or I'm not paid as per my value, because everybody has a value. They're starting to feel that I'm a low skilled, I'm offering more, but I'm paid less. In the workplace, we have performance management discussion, and these are not a group discussion. It's one-on-one with the manager. As an employee, I need to be able to know what I'm delivering on. How much have I brought in a company? For instance, if I'm in sales, or if I tend around or solve the problem, because most of the time in the workplace we solve the problem. When I joined, I found that this company had this, or the department, perhaps if it's not company-wide. So one has to be able to know what they are contributing to the company, so that way they can sell. So if I want a salary increase, when I go when one goes to the manager for performance discussion, with performance discussion always starts with the individual, the employee themselves. They actually review. You are reviewing your own work to say, for the first quarter, this is what I've done. This is how I've done it. This is how well I have also done it. And I believe the skills, perhaps when I joined, I couldn't do A, B, C, and D, but now I have done A, B, C, and D. Yesterday, I actually had a meeting with my team, and I was sharing, coincidentally, almost the same thing. I said, sometimes as managers, we can be oblivious and we pretend like we don't know what's happening in your space, even though we see it. But and I gave them an example to say, perhaps you want a promotion or you want more money. You come to me and you tell me to say, we worked on this project and this is how we have done it, and we are currently working under pressure. There's a client that is requesting for, and they are going beyond and above, and I say, if you don't document this, when we have the performance, I'll pretend to not remember. Not that I will, but it's also about positioning yourself and knowing your worth. Maybe if I put it that way. So employees should be able to keep records. Evidence is very important, so that when you go there, you know what you have done, how you have done it, how much, when, all those, so that no one can deny to say, you're not worthy of this. But because the work speaks for itself, there is evidence that is accompanied with it.
Absolutely. Can you say, what is your plan for me, boss? I've been standing in this one place. I've been performing. I've been doing the best that I can. do you have a plan for me? Is that a good conversation to have? We'll look at that question after the break. We're speaking to Lisa Matumola, HR expert from Namibia. Do you feel sometimes that you're exhibiting what can be invisible behavior in the workplace? Yes, you probably get number one every time when it comes to the results of the numbers. But when it comes to promotion, you get that junior person. They keep coming in, these juniors, and they override you, and somehow they're the ones who are getting the promotion. How do you go beyond and above to make sure that you are also seen in the workplace for that promotion? We'll continue after the break. It's 20 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You are listening to On the Move with myself, Benjamin Moshatama, and I'm with Palisatao.
Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
We are in the cubicle speaking about life in the workplace, and today we're finding out why you keep being overlooked for that promotion and the common invisible behaviors that you could be doing that are holding you back from being promoted in your workspace. We continue this conversation with HR expert Lisa Matumola. Very interesting question that Ben asked before our break, Lisa. If you go into the one-on-one meeting with your manager, with your boss, most of the time we think about the questions that the boss are going to ask us, and we sit there, sort of waiting for things to happen without actually taking action, but also not asking our own questions. Maybe if you are trying to take charge of your own career, you be asking your boss what plans they have for you within the organization.
Thank you very much, Palestine. When you speak, I actually get goosebumps because when you say take charge of your career, it's actually one of the slogans that I use when I'm talking about careers in the workplace. I often tell employees that your career is your business, and I often say hashtag my career is my business. So if one doesn't take charge of their career, the other people are just there to kind of support, but the employee themselves is the one that is in charge. So very, very important. When one is in the workplace, they also need to know how well they are doing. So getting regular feedback helps. You find employees that go to the workplace, they're just there to get a salary. Being a salary corrector doesn't work, because if you also stay in a position for the longest without growth, without a salary increase, you lose out in terms of remuneration. The cost of living keeps going high. So it's always important to know what projects are happening, putting up my hand to say, I'm available for this position, or I'd love to be exposed in this area and that area, because and that is what you said, my work should speak for itself. So you're waiting to be nominated. Unfortunately, somebody will just come and say, and there are those that are confident even if they don't have the skill. At times in the workplace, there are projects where you don't need to have the know-how, but there are opportunities, either you are sent for training. So all those are opportunities where one is exposed. So finding those exposure in the workplace. Sometimes it's about volunteering as well. Lately I was working with a client where it's not very busy in their own space, and they're kind of being shadowed. They are not visible. And I remember telling the one employee that you are actually, no one sees you. You are here, but you are not here. So you need to communicate to say, and interestingly enough, that we are talking about performance, they have obtained the qualification. They recently graduated. So they felt like this is enough. I have this qualification. But now the question is, where can you position yourself in this company? If you see that the one department needs more people and your work is not so much, you can say, I'm here to help, so that you can also learn other people's work, especially for small companies where exposure is not so much. And I'm not saying people should overwork themselves, but when we are hiring, we are moving to skills-based hiring. You can have 10 years in a company, but what have you done?
Yeah.
But so that 10 years means that I've worked on this, I've been exposed to this, I've found this. So there's presentism where people go to work and they show up, but there's also that exposure and learning and growth and career development, career advancement, so that even if the current employer doesn't have the opportunities, you can find a job in another company because you have gained the skill. One of the reasons people are stuck, we have what we call career stagnation, is because they are not positioning themselves. Some have decided, I'm not going to try. And we start to label. We've had this conversation before. We say this company is toxic and the managers, but it's also about what you're doing, like taking charge of your career and positioning yourself for opportunities. And maybe the last point I can mention on this is there's competition. So for example, right now you are two, you and Ben, and if an opportunity comes, maybe Ben is like, I'm here, and maybe we can even talk about gender issues. Sometimes male can be more confident. Females feel, we're still a bit reserved, but the workplace at times it's about, are you visible? Can I see you? Are you also willing? It's also about willingness, going that extra mile. If we talk about the Gen Z, sometimes they just mental health and all these type of issues. But sometimes companies are looking for, to what extent are you going beyond? That's what makes people differentiate people who goes beyond and above, especially if you're on the same level.
It's important to be vocal, because I think why it's important is that at times even other people can take credit of your own work if you are too invisible. And that's why you should take a stake at it and make sure that your own projects are owned by you, and you don't let other people, because you are a little bit quieter, take over what you've done even in the workplace, because I've noticed people easily can do that.
And I'll give my example. I'll speak about myself. When I started my career, I worked at a Big Four company. And when I joined, I thought, you know what, I'm just here to observe the culture and that kind of stuff. And the beauty of also working for a company where you receive feedback even from peers, I received feedback that Lisa needs to speak more in meetings. Then, when you get you're startled, oh my gosh. So people expect me to speak, and also building relationships, sometimes not just as with peers, but even with your senior management team. Your CEO must know your name, because that's when people are discussing your promotion. Simple things as like greetings. I used to sit in performance discussions where people are being promoted, and sometimes the comments will be, no, we can't promote Palesa because she doesn't greet. All she does is come in, sit at her desk, and then she
very petty over
but
there.
Now it's looking at the industry you are in, you need to be talking to people. So if you don't even greet people, if we have a guest come in studio, Palesa will just look at this guest like, oh, I see you, and then you only. So those competencies that we need, that are required, they really do help in the workplace. So it's not just about coming to do my job. And in a world where there's you even compete with the global people, it's not just about South Africa or Namibia or Zambia, but we are competing with people from Asia, from Japan. They have different work cultures. So if I'm even looking for a remote job, for instance, it means that we need to do extra, or when we go to other countries. And that's why sometimes as Africans, we go to other countries and we quickly come back because we are not used to that self.
All right, Lisa, we need to wrap up the conversation. So I want to ask about, organizational habits, because sometimes you have this dream that you're going to be promoted. But if you actually look around you in the organization, most people, if not all people, have been in that same position, some for even 20 years. So if you can see that the organization that you're in doesn't actually have a culture of growth, could that be maybe an observation that you make and a decision that you'd have to make to actually just move to another organization instead of trying to find a promotion in an organization that doesn't have that kind of culture?
Thank you very much, Palesa, and a very good question or comment. I often say that companies are designed differently when it comes to structure. There are companies where you come, we train you, and we let you go. We release you for the market. There are companies that just hire experienced people because we don't have time to come and train you. This is not a company where you are learning. You must come, they often say you hit the ground running. And there are also companies that are small in size. You have outgrown yourself, as mentioned. You have learned what you can. So instead of trying, because we must also look in terms of things like their financial performance, the structures. If they can't add structures, maybe they are limited. There's also not motivation enough for work for us to create this position, or for us to give you these additional responsibilities, but there's nothing that stops an employee from looking for another job. And this is where you can go and become the ambassador of this company because you have gained the experience. You can go and continue. And one day when the company grows, if you like it too much, you can always come back. We call it the boomerang effect. But some companies, they don't have the opportunities. Some, it's relationship, like I mentioned. There are managers that will say, for as long as you're here, Benjamin, I'm not promoting you. So you also we shouldn't wait until it's too late to realize that my value here is not recognized. So there are opportunities somewhere.
We'll have to leave it there. Apologies there. But I think it's a great way to wrap up. Sometimes you have to see that the opportunities are not where you currently are, and you have to go elsewhere to look for those opportunities. It's always great chatting to you, Lisa, and we've gotten some great advice from you. Thank you so much. That's HR expert Lisa Matumola speaking to us about why you might not be getting those promotions and maybe giving some great pointers on how you can make your next career move. It's 10:30 Central Africa time. We have Musibudi Makura back with our latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Palestine, and a very good morning from the sports desk. Now, SABC Sport can reveal that Rolando Mokoena has agreed to return to the dugout on a 2-year deal with MC Algiers and is now finalizing his backroom staff ahead of his return to North Africa next season. So the public broadcaster further also understands that Mokoena will approach Enzo Dornes as well as Wendell Robinson to join him at his new club. Dornes currently holds a UEFA Pro license and is also currently the assistant coach of the Togo men's national football team, while Robinson has previously worked with Mokoena at Mamelodi Sundowns but was recently hired by Amazulu as the goalkeeper coach. It's also believed Mokoena sees Dornes as an attractive option because not only does he hold the highest coaching qualification required, of course, by CAF, but also speaks several languages and, most importantly, French. Mokoena is believed to still be ironing out the finer details of his contract with Algiers. This despite the North African club confirming that he will be taking over just a few days ago. Onto this now, former Gambia's men's national football team player as well as coach Sang Ndonang is fairly delighted with the current state of the game in the West African country, the Gambia. Now speaking to Channel Africa Sport, Ndong reflects on his tenure as a Scorpions manager.
I think we created what is being utilized today because as the national team coach, we had very limited professional playing for the Gambia. And by then, Senegal, Morocco all came back from World Cup and had to play against Gambia while I was the national team coach. And by then, we were counting about 3 or 4 national team players together with our home-based players. I can fully remember when Morocco, Haji and others went to the World Cup. They came back. I think their first game was against the Gambia here.
Meanwhile, despite the Gambia also women's national football team failure to qualify for the ongoing Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Morocco, Ndong remains optimistic with the status of the women's game.
Yeah, the federation are doing everything possible to give support to women's football because we are presently registered in all the categories. Presently, our senior national team just beat past Niger, and we're playing against Kenya in September. And if they win, they'll be going to the finals. So the women's football, we're doing well. We just finished competing the under-20 national team also. So everything is working. And
Further field now, Luka Modric has completed a move to AC Milan on a free transfer after 13 successful years at Real Madrid. The 39-year-old midfielder has signed a contract until June of 2026, with the Italian side also having the option to trigger a one-year extension. Now, Modric announced in May of this year he would be leaving the Spanish giants Real Madrid after the FIFA Club World Cup in the USA. Speaking to Milan's social media, he said he was very happy to be starting a new chapter of his career. Meanwhile, Massimiliano Allegri, who has returned for a second stint as Milan boss after replacing Sergio Conceição, called Modric an extraordinary player, when also confirming the Croatian captain would join the club earlier on this month. Modric, who won the Ballon d'Or award back in 2018, also won 28 trophies, including 6 Champions Leagues, as well as 4 La Liga titles. Now, for Real Madrid, as he moved from Tottenham Hotspur back in 2012, also making him the club's most decorated player. He scored 43 goals in 597 games at Real Madrid, and also his final game was in that 4-0 semi-final defeat by Paris Saint-Germain in the FIFA Club World Cup just last week. And finally, in cricket news, Ben Stokes once again inspired England to a 22-run victory over a stubborn India side on a tense final day of the third test at Lord's yesterday. The captain delivered a monumental shift with a ball to claim 3 wickets as India were bowled out for 170 runs. In an epic conclusion, the host side had a victory in their grasp until nerves were frayed by the outstanding defiance of Ravindra Jadeja. Now chasing 93 runs for a victory, India were at 112 at some point for 8 when Jadeja was joined by number 10 Jasprit Bumrah. They were together for almost 22 overs until Stokes, who bowled tirelessly from the nursery end, drew Bumrah into a pull to mid-on, and Bumrah's contribution at that point was about 5 runs from 54 balls. And that concludes the sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Benjamin Mushatama and Palisatawo on the move.
Hey, it's time for us to move on right now. It's time for our business news. Let's find out what Buntle Headpush has for us.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin. Good morning. In our top business story at this hour, the government of Botswana says it will allow its Pula currency to depreciate by 2.76% over the coming year. This is an effort to enhance the competitiveness of domestic goods and services and also protect foreign exchange reserves, which have shrunk steadily since 2018, reaching a record low of 5.2 months import cover in February. The Southern African country reviews its exchange rate twice a year, adjusting it upwards or downwards through a crawling band exchange rate regime under which the Pula is pegged. Senior economics lecturer at the University of Botswana, Obonye Kgalebotswe, explains why the country needs to change its exchange rate policy.
And the combination of slow economic growth, low export revenues, increase in imports, tend to put a downward pressure on the domestic currency. And the current exchange regime is such that the value of the pula is determined not by the market forces of demand and supply, but rather it is determined by the government. So they have been putting it at a certain rate, but now with the foreign exchange reserves decreasing significantly over the last 3 years, this makes the exchange rate policy intervention unsustainable.
Uber drivers have been gathering at the e-hailing services head office in Parktown, north of Johannesburg, South Africa, ahead of their protest action against the company. The disgruntled operators say they're unhappy about a number of work-related issues, including alleged changes to Uber's commission percentages and unprofitable trip prices. E-hailing driver Awelani Mashete says the drivers feel that Uber is now exploiting them due to the increased tariffs.
We are having a problem with the price, the price that they are doing now. Uber South Africa is using a dynamic pricing, which they take a lot of commission, and then the Uber drivers are getting less in their net pay and then in their pay. So it means if you take a trip, them, instead of taking 25% fee, which we all know, and those who started Uber, they have agreed on, it's not longer that 25, it's 48 to 50%, meaning that you go half with the Uber now.
Zambia's State Mining Corporation is pushing for the U.S. to grant the country exemptions from proposed copper import duties. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump announced that his administration would impose a new 50% tariff on all copper imported into the U.S. from the 1st of August. Head of the Zambian Consolidated Copper Mines, Gagene Nwamuyangwa, says the U.S. tariffs could undermine a major infrastructure initiative such as the Lobito Corridor project, which aims to facilitate the export of critical raw materials, particularly copper and cobalt. He explains the other adverse effects that this will have.
So essentially, what this will do to any company that's mining and refining within the United States is that it will push their prices up and they'll get more revenue. So this is the mining companies and the refining companies in the USA simply just playing along with politics on the basis of greed, because it does not make any sense. Besides them getting higher profits, there's going to be shortages of all these metals within the USA. And when they are going to be made available, they're going to be more expensive. So it really doesn't make sense.
China's economy has grown at a slightly faster pace than expected in the second quarter, showing resilience in the face of U.S. tariffs. Data released by China's National Bureau of Statistics this morning showed that China's gross domestic product has grown 5.2% in the April to June quarter from a year earlier, slowing from 5.4% in the first quarter. Analysts say U.S. tariffs remain a major headwind for China, but that Chinese policymakers won't feel the need to offset this if economic growth remains strong. The founder of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, says the social media giant will spend hundreds of billions of dollars on building huge AI data centers. They will be named after figures from sci-fi and mythology like Prometheus and Hyperion. The BBC's Lily Jamali has the details.
One cluster will be almost as large as the island of Manhattan in New York City. Meta has made most of its money from online advertising. Now it's scrambling to compete in developing so-called super intelligence, technology that's smarter than humans. But the multi-gigawatt data centers announced by Mr. Zuckerberg Monday will burn through electricity at a steady clip. Critics argue the environmental costs of powering such data centers dwarf any benefit.
And now for a look at the indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,527 naira. In Botswana, it's 13.20. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 54. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 16. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 56. Russia, 77 rubles 98. In India, it's 85 rupees 89. China, 7 yuan 16. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 90 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,358 per ounce and platinum at $1,408 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $68 a barrel. And those are your business news at this hour. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Cette peur d'un point de non-retour nucléaire suffit-elle selon vous à légitimer une telle offensive, Monsieur Talazi?
Absolument pas du tout. Cela fait plus de 30 ans que l'Israël crie haut et fort sur les toits où il veut se faire entendre que l'Iran serait à 1 an pour obtenir l'arme nucléaire. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 6 mois. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 2 semaines pour obtenir son arme nucléaire. Et curieusement, jusqu'à ce jour, il n'y a toujours aucune preuve que l'Iran a obtenu cette arme nucléaire en dépit des déclarations d'Israël et de certaines puissances parfois.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palisa and Benjamin.
Hey, yo, Tron.
Eti nimemlambisha ananambia chumbeza tena nikizidisha
that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, interactive compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle. We deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25
Our girl Zuchu. And this one is titled Sukari, right here on Channel Africa, giving you the African perspective. We're keeping things moving, just got our latest news updates for sports and business. And we're speaking about not getting that promotion. What do you think is the reason behind you being overlooked for that promotion? And sometimes I feel like we have high expectations where we're not paying attention, right? You have high expectations of going to the next level when those who have been your managers for the past 5 years are still there. They haven't gone anywhere. Like they're not moving. They haven't gotten any promotions as yet. The whole organization is stagnant. And that obviously is something that you can look closely at and say, well, is this the right organization for me to actually move up? And outside of those particular circumstances, are you even speaking up for yourself? Are you putting in added effort outside of the job that you're supposed to do? Because everyone, that's the reason the organization is working in the first place. It's because everyone is there doing their job. So obviously that's not good enough. Are you taking that added effort to actually make those relationships, to network within the organization, and to find avenues and other ways to move up in the organization? Because most of us think a promotion is only linear, right? Meaning in the job that I'm doing, I'm looking to go up. But sometimes you can actually pivot like horizontally or diagonally, meaning that you have to put a little bit extra effort to learn other roles in the organization. Have you done that? So if you are a presenter like Benjamin and I are, have you tried to learn what it is the tech people do, the producers do? And maybe there is a way for you to actually pivot, not in a linear direction to your direct manager, but maybe just another direction within the same organization. So open up your mind and see if that works. And if not, maybe it's time for you to start looking somewhere else. It's 10:50 Central Africa time. Give us your thoughts on this conversation. And if you've had experience with not being able to move up in your organization, we'd love to hear from you on +27 63 406 9126.
Zilipendwa na Abedi. Anaitwa Daniel Etienne Benson. Huyu alizaliwa mwaka 1997, ilikuwa Mei 14, na anajulikana kitaalamu kabisa kwa jina la muziki BNXN. Haya, ni mwanamuziki, ni mwimbaji kutoka nchini Nigeria, mtunzi wa nyimbo na mtayarishaji wa record label. Ameshirikiana na Rema kwenye wimbo huu. Rema vile vile ni msanii kutoka huko nchini Nigeria.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
We are up, we are ready, we are on the move with Pali Satawo and Benjamin Mushatama on Channel Africa.
It's 51 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. You are listening to On the Move. Well, let's get into our On the Move Vintage Africa feature. This is when I look back at what's happened on the African continent and look back at where we are. Let's look at where we are with today's Vintage Africa. Everyone on social media is talking about, at the age of 92, Paul Biya wants to still be a president. I mean, he's had 8 presidential terms, and he's been deemed as one of the world's oldest heads of state.
Goodness.
Come on, stop being ageist.
Am I being ageist?
That's the big debate, right? That's happening online. Like, no, are we being ageist or what?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think it's being ageist because it's the same governments who are placing retirement ages for citizens.
Okay.
And they have placed various reasons why retirement ages are, of a particular threshold. But they don't adhere to the same threshold. So are you saying that if the citizen's retirement age is 65 and you say maybe they want to, 65 years want to relax? Or
I'm a president. I'm not just a worker.
Yeah, but president is even much more work than the average citizen. You know what I mean? And that should be even a higher impact than the citizens have when it comes to retirement age.
Well, let's look at Paul Biya. He is from Cameroon, as we all know, and he's been in power for many, many years. At the age of 92 years old, Biya has been Cameroon's president since November 1982. I wasn't even born yet.
Neither was I.
Now, this makes him the world's oldest sitting non-royal head of state. His lengthy rule in Cameroon navigates various political and economic challenges. He struggled, but still wants to go back and try it one more time.
Oh, honey. Oh, honey. Also, I mean, the democracy of our countries relies heavily on the choice of leadership. And also, I think the change of the choice in leadership is quite positive for democracy, but that's just my own opinion.
And then the person who stands number one is the 10 longest serving African presidents is Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasongo, and right now he's at the age of 83 years old, and he's Africa's longest serving president, having seized power in a military coup in the year 1979. And guess who he ousted, Bali?
Who?
His uncle.
Wow. Yeah, no, I can.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. And then there's Yoweri Museveni, who we know that he had 39 years in presidency. He was president since 1986, and he was described as autocratic. He's navigated Uganda through periods of progress and political challenges. But we know right now he's still holding on for dear life. But we know also his autocratic rules against the LGBTQ plus community. There's been a lot of criticism against him when it comes to that. And that is a very sad story of what's happening in Uganda. And who's your favorite long-serving president, Bali?
I don't have a favorite.
Okay, one that you know. The most popular one of them all.
The ones that I like, Nelson Mandela.
No, but he was never an autocrat, man. Nelson Mandela actually stepped down on time.
That's all I like. I
Robert
don't
Mugabe.
like any autocrats. I want change. I advocate for change.
Right, Robert Mugabe is one of those. We know that he actually had his own party that was pushing a coup against him, which was very, very bizarre. He was 37 years in power in Zimbabwe, and he was a dominant figure in Zimbabwe's politics for nearly 4 decades, serving as prime minister and later as president. His rule was marked by those land seizures that took place and also human rights abuses thereafter that occurred. But there's so many of these guys, Jose Eduardo dos Santos, Idris Deby, Isaias Afewerki, Hosni Mubarak, so many of them. What is your take? Why do you think we have such a long-standing sense of our presidents here in the African continent? Is it because we allow it? Is it because we don't have the right institutions in place for change? What's your take on today's vintage Africa? +2763 406 9126. That's where you can text us or voice note us.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. 9 to 12 midday Central African Time. On the move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushata.
Should influencers be expected to be impactful in society? If there is a social or societal conversation that goes up, should we be waiting eagerly to hear what the influencers have to say?
They are more than just entertainers. They are thought leaders to some certain degree. They influence culture. They influence people's thought processes. They set trends. They shape opinions of people. And the sad reality is, although a lot of them don't want to accept it, I think we're getting better with them realizing that they're embarking in that journey, and in that space comes with a certain level of responsibility.
I see it differently in that, professionals are already good at their job, but there is an optionality that they might have to use the position that they hold in society to be able to deliver a message. This year you made the example of actors and actresses. So the same could apply to a sportsman. Just because someone's good at soccer doesn't mean that they have to have an influence over society from a specific standpoint.
Keeping you on the know and on the move.
We're going into a very interesting conversation in the next hour of the show. It's our Money Matters feature where we speak all things personal finance. And one thing that we know that impacts our personal finance are relationships, right? Especially romantic relationships and marriages. And when it comes to relationships and money, when it comes to romantic relationships and money, there is an age-old debate. And I think, one that started in the early 2000s. months, and we're still hearing about this debate today. 50-50. Should we be going 50-50? And I mean, there's been a lot of evolution now, especially with the rise of social media, where the conversations are being sparked in very different directions. Other people are saying indoda mas, the rest saying women are too independent. The others are saying, well, if I work outside and you work inside, that means that we're sharing the load equally. There's so much around this conversation. That's why we're going into the next hour of the show for our Money Matters feature. The concept of 50-50 in relationships. And if it is possible for couples to actually go 50-50, what would that actually look like? Like if the couples actually intentionally sat down and said, I think we are going to do a 50-50 household together, and that's how we're going to take care of our finances. If it were to work, what would that look like? That's the conversation we're having in the next hour of the show. And if you're a couple or part of a couple, that has tried to go 50-50, what are some of the challenges that you've seen? And is it something that people actually speak about? Because I find that even the 50-50 couples don't actually chat about it. They're just individually upset at one another. This one is making me pay for half of everything, even though I do most of the work in the household. And the other said, but we both work. Why aren't we both contributing? The other saying, this one earns 5 times more than I earn. Why am I contributing equally? It's a mess, but we're going to unpack that mess in the next hour of the show. Let's go into that hour. Onele Nzinzi brings us in with our latest news update and the final news update for the morning.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Palisa. Looking at your top stories, the hashtag Hands Off Mkhwanazi March organizers in South Africa demand protection for the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, and the University of South Africa and Air Traffic and Navigation Services set to formalize partnership. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. The organizers of the hashtag Hands Off Mkhwanazi March in South Africa are demanding the protection of the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. They also say they reject President Cyril Ramaphosa's establishment of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry to probe Mkhwanazi's implication of senior police officials, including Minister Senzo Mchunu, in corruption and having links to criminal syndicates. Scores of residents, groups and some political parties are participating in the march, which is in support of Mkhwanazi. One of the organizers, Vincent Mdunge, says they view Mkhwanazi as a whistleblower that needs protection.
We are therefore supporting him in the view that we know that the attacks that are directed at him are simply intended to protect the criminal element, because there are ministers of parliament, including Senzo Mchunu, that are in cahoots with the criminals, that are sharing the same bed, that are on the back pocket of the criminal element. And we cannot trust a man like that. We want the president to do a complete overhaul of the justice cluster system. We are saying political killings task team must be resuscitated, and we are saying the president is breaking the law. The Constitution of the Republic clearly says there shall be no 2 ministers of cabinet that are going to serve or be appointed in one portfolio.
The Electoral Commission in South Africa is expected to present a report on the 2024 general elections to Parliament this morning. The report will detail the Commission's achievements in relation to managing the polls, including successfully integrating independent candidates into contesting national and provincial elections. Busi Bopila explains.
In its report, the IEC says it was able to make the smooth transition necessitated by a new electoral system which saw independent candidates contest general elections for the first time. Amongst the changes it was required to make were the rewriting of the ICT business applications, including the candidate nomination system and the results system, amongst others. With 70 political parties contesting alongside 11 independent candidates, the intensity of competition was unprecedented.
The University of South Africa, UNISA, and Air Traffic and Navigation Services are today set to formalize their partnership through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding. The move will mark a significant step forward in advancing multidisciplinary research in air traffic management at UNISA's main campus in the capital, Pretoria. Anchored in the university's catalyst niche area on aviation, the project aims to advance multidisciplinary collaborations between academia and industry. Michael Mbewe reports.
Initiated and launched in early 2024, the partnership aims to bridge the gap between academia and industry in the aviation sector. This engaged scholarship project serves as a high-impact model of academic and industry collaboration, combining UNISA's strength in research, teaching and innovation with ATNS's operational and technical expertise, given the critical role of aviation in supporting economic growth and connectivity. Together, the institutions are fostering a transformative approach to addressing the dynamic needs of South Africa's aviation sector.
A Lesotho MP is facing criminal charges after accused the country's monarch and government of signing over control of Lesotho to its much larger neighbours, South Africa. Dr. Tsepo Dipulo also is of violating the dignity and reputation of the royal family by declaring himself the chief ruler of the landlocked country. Dipulo reportedly appeared in court yesterday to apply for bail, but this was postponed to a later date this month. The opposition MP has previously called for parts of South Africa to be declared Lesotho's territory and wants them returned to Lesotho's control. Lastly, the World Health Organization has recommended a twice-yearly injectable drug as a tool to prevent HIV infections. It will be an alternative to pills that have to be taken daily. The WHO recommendation at the International AIDS Conference in Rwanda follows a U.S. regulator's approval to the use of the drug, also known as PrEP. Doctors Will Nutshell is a co-founder of an HIV activist group also called PrEP.
The good news about the injectable formulations of PrEP is that we know that sometimes when PrEP doesn't work, it's because people forget to take the tablet. So an injectable formulation takes away the ability for us to forget because we've already had the injection in the body and the PrEP is there.
Recapping on your top stories, organizers of the hashtag Hands Off Mkhwanazi in South Africa are demanding the protection of the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. One of the organizers, Vincent Dunge, says they view Mkhwanazi as a whistleblower that needs protection. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
What does 50-50 actually look like? Money and relationships is one of those conversations that always come up.
Have it before the relationship starts, I say.
How do you have it before the relationship starts?
Have the conversation about money before it starts.
I don't understand.
Absolutely.
I don't understand.
Yeah, there's
how you
dating
can have...
stages, So what's
in
your
the
take
dating
on
stage, you must say.
What do you think about money?
Yeah, but unfortunately, people in relationships don't actually speak about money as much as they should be. Mm-hmm. And it causes a lot of confusion later on. And it always causes a lot of debate in groups of people. Groups of men speak about it. Groups of women speak about it. When men are together, they speak about it. Men and women are together, they speak about it. And on social media, they keep talking about how to handle money in relationships. And this concept of 50-50 has been existing for quite some time now. But it seems like we still haven't wrapped our heads around it in terms of how it would look like if it were to be successful.
Yeah, it's the percentage that's the problem, right? Because not all of us can actually equally make provision for whatever it is, right? So whether you go to a dinner date, I've noticed I'll pay for the drinks. Oh, okay, I'll pay for the supper, and then the drinks are usually more than the supper, so whoever volunteered
for the
drinks is the one who's going to be paying more.
Because then you guys get one big pizza and you share it, and that's the supper, and usually then you have been getting like
usually
4 or 5
the ladies
drinks.
would say, let's get a pizza after they've volunteered to actually pay for the meal.
Okay, it is going to be a funny conversation, but it's also a serious one because there's so many different financial arrangements that people are becoming more intentional about. And if 50-50 is one of the financial arrangements that you are thinking of implementing within your relationship, then what would that look like in practice if it were to be successful? In our Money Matters feature, we'll be speaking to business science and performance specialist Dr. Mavis Mazura to help unpack this.
Yeah, we're looking forward to all these conversations. Remember, you can follow us on our different social media platforms at Channel Africa One. We're on TikTok, we are on Facebook, we are on X, we are on Thread, we are on Instagram. So there's no reason you can say, I don't know where Channel Africa is. Who's this Channel Africa? We are there in your face. So go there and find us and become part of the Channel Africa family. Be also available to actually join us on our YouTube live stream, and we make sure that we also curate some of the content that we have live. And so we are streaming live. You can see the visuals on our Facebook page, but on our YouTube page we also curate some of the live conversations that we have with some of our guests, and we make sure that you are always catching up with us. So find that YouTube page using that handle, the magic handle as I usually say, at Channel Africa One. Well, let's get going. I'm looking forward to this Money Matters feature. Let's go 50-50.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter?
Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard?
Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126.
And we will call you back.
So you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views.
Share your opinion.
Engage with a community that values your perspective.
Follow us on our social media.
Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za
and get ready to share your views
on Channel Africa,
the African perspective.
Zochitika ndimodapiri kamlondola wazochitika pena paliponse
nduna wazamalonda kumalawi aletsa kampani yopanga shuga ya Ilovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Ilovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza shuga kumaiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mumba, izi zithandiza kuti shuga yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Ilovo Sugar Malawi, kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolola. Ndiye akamaliza kukolola pameneno atayambeno sopano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula sugar kaya ndi ku Ilovo kaya ndi kusalima sugar akumagulisa kumaiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
Zochitika ndimodapiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Balisa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
No. What you mean? Hey, welcome to see you're independent. Let's go 50-50. Everybody, welcome to independent. How 50-50? How got the medical like Gabi?
Hey, you know, it is quite a jam. Remember when Mendoza gave us this one back in 2001 titled 50-50? It's our Money Matters feature. And we're taking a look at this idea of a 50-50 relationship. It's always sparked countless debates, starting in the early 2000s, as you can hear from the Mendoza song. Some see it as a gold standard of equality, where both partners contribute equally, whether it's financially, emotionally, or in household responsibilities. And others argue that love and life aren't always that neatly divided. But what does 50-50 really look like in practice, and can it actually work? We're going into that conversation in today's Money Matters feature, where we speak all things personal finance. If you were to be in a 50-50 relationship, how would you make that practical and intentional within your relationship? We have business science and performance specialist Dr. Mavis Mazura joining us on the line to unpack this one. Would you go 50-50, Dr. Mazura?
Good morning, and thanks for having
Good
me.
morning.
I think the concept is not. It applies in different contexts differently, so it varies. So I think maybe we need to unpack that.
Yeah, I can
That
see the
50-50 doesn't
yeah,
mean.
Doctor. I think Palisa caught you by surprise there.
Yeah, she did. She did.
You know, the concept and idea of a 50-50 relationship has sparked so much debate for a very long time, especially in the beginning where women started to be more financially independent. Around the early 2000s, we started hearing song and, popular culture speaking a lot about this 50-50 concept, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I think also, people then started to contextualize it for what works for them. So 50-50 might mean we take all the expenses and we split them in half and everybody pays their half, their 50%. But it might also mean we look at the shared responsibilities that we have and we divide those responsibilities. It might also mean we agree on a percentage, an amount that you will contribute from your own salary. So if we say you're contributing 80% from your salary, I'm contributing 80%. So I think it differs in application. It doesn't always mean an equal split of the actual rands and cents or the amount.
And that's where many people are getting the conversation of 50-50 wrong, right? Because it seems like what they're saying is that we are putting a percentage down to all our financial needs and responsibilities. And if the percentage is going to be 50-50, that means that we have to pay everything equally. But there's so many other things that are happening in relationships that might really make that concept much more complicated. And now that we're being more intentional and speaking a little bit more through social media about the concepts of relationship, we now know about the emotional weight of relationships, the psychological weight of relationships, the household weight of relationships, including the financial weight of relationships. And not all of that can be split in half, can it?
No, so not all of that can be split in half. So I think it's also having that conversation to say what are the non-financial contributions and how do those actually get factored in the sharing, in the split.
Yeah. You see, when ladies start saying what are the non-financial contributions, you know you are in trouble. But you know what, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it works more on formalized maybe family set up or maybe a formal relationship that we can go 50-50, right? But I think you say something very powerful, because not everyone can contribute the same as the other partner financially. At times the other person can actually contribute more when it comes to other areas in the household or in the relationship dynamic.
That's true. So there's a lot of non-paid work that we don't normally consider when we're talking about, the financial contribution. Who's making sure that the kids have done homework, who's doing school run, who is cleaning the house, who's cooking, there are a lot of other things that need to be considered that don't always have a rand value, that don't always, are not, given that financial value.
At the base of a conversation like this is the conversation itself. It seems like a lot of couples avoid having conversations about money, which then brings in the issues that they finally have. Because no matter how they're splitting the financial responsibilities, others, end up having grudges in the relationship, end up, not feeling like they're needed or they wanted in the relationship because the communication is not actually taking place. So maybe let's start there. Communications about money and responsibility in the relationship setting.
So I think that actually needs to start when people are dating, but we're not trained for that, right? We're not even trained for that. We don't even want to get into a marriage and start, having a surprise about how someone's financial values are now impacting the way you're spending, how someone's money story, where they come from. How they've been raised and socialized around money is now affecting you, or the way money is organized in the house. So I think that money is still a taboo subject. We don't talk about it enough, and we need to start having that conversation. Even when people are dating, even with our children, we need to start having that conversation to be more transparent around finances. What is happening around finances? What's driving our finances? What are our financial values? What are the financial beliefs? So those are the things that we don't really talk about, because also then you look at it, when we then split these, the financial responsibilities, we normally go via gendered, with the way we've been socialized in terms of what do women do, what do men do. So you end up having a woman who's paying school fees, she's paying for groceries, she's paying for the helper, and the man of the house is paying the bond, is paying the car, but he's paying for real assets, right? And now we can also even go back and say, depending on how you're married, are you married in community of property, out of community of property with accrual, out of community of property without accrual? What does that mean in case that you want to now separate? So the financial contribution, long term, long run, what does it mean if you have split your financial responsibilities the way you've done it? So I think conversation needs to be really, really had, and that's something that we need to get better at.
Let's talk about those gender roles. How essential are they? Because we are in the continent, and patriarchy at times seems to overwhelm these kind of conversations.
That's true, and that's something that we need to outgrow. We need to adapt to the changing world, right? Before, our mothers were not working, our fathers were working, they were financially responsible. I mean, they were taking responsibility of finances, but now we're saying things have changed. Our women are also working, but you find often that, we still are wired in that, women buy groceries, women pay school fees. Non-tangible things. But in the end, women live longer than their male counterparts, about 5 to 7 years. So women need to plan even more and better financially, right? So that they can have enough to live, for the rest of their lives. But if we are not having those conversations, and we're saying women are underinvested, that's one thing for sure. Women are not investing their money. So very few women are investing their money. Their money is just finishing in daily household expenses. There's no long-term goals. There's no long-term financial planning. So if your partner doesn't actually do it for you, you find that sometimes you actually end up in financial problems or trouble when your partner is no longer there.
All right, we need to take a break, Dr. Mazura. Stay with us on the line. I want us to come and see if we can create a financially balanced way to take care of our finances in the relationship without making it a transactional scorecard, which can bring in other emotional issues within that relationship dynamic. Stay with us. We're speaking about going 50-50. Is it practical? And if so, how do we do it?
This Mandela Month, Channel Africa invites you to walk in the footsteps of a giant. From the prison yard of Robben Island to the halls of the United Nations, Nelson Mandela's legacy reminds us that service, compassion, and justice are the building blocks of real freedom.
En cette journée Mandela, que nos actions fassent écho à son héritage.
Alionyesha dunia ya kwamba sauti moja yaweza kuhamasisha mataifa.
Mandela ensinou-nos que a liberdade não é dada, mas sim conquistada através da coragem e sacrifício.
Join us as we reflect, remember, and reignite the spirit of Madiba across the continent. This is more than a day. It's a call to action. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Benjamin Mushatama and Palisatawo on the move.
21 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. Our Money Matters feature. We're speaking about money from a personal perspective here. Our guest is Dr. Mavis Mazura, a business science and performance specialist who's helping us speaking about what does the 50-50 relationship actually look like. And we've touched on so many points that actually are very, very interesting on this one. Palisa was asking that question around the transactional scorecard, and at times in relationships we determine them by how much you contributing, how much I should be contributing. My generation of the millennials are very much scorecard keepers, especially the ladies. They'll tell you that you must, as a man, contribute more. I must have something in my account at the end of the month because you are in my life. At times that stuff happens. because you're like, no, how? So I must be emptied out by you, and you must have money in your account. How fair is that? But if you really love someone, the transactional scorecard becomes very much non-valid, right? And keeping up score is probably not healthy in a relationship.
Right. So I think let's look at the fact that socialization always comes in. So we need to almost upgrade our operating model. When women are saying you need to make sure that I'm taken care of, where is that coming from? It's something that we've been trained for ever, right? To say a man takes care of a woman. So we need to revisit that social wiring and recondition and wire ourselves for our current circumstances, right? That's one. And also, now when we look at the fact that, we can reduce our financial responsibilities to transactions, I think this is where communication is very important. And getting to know each other is also very, very important. What are our shared goals? What are our dreams, right? And then be able to support each other to meet goals, be able to support each other to achieve the desired dreams so that everybody's feeling satisfied and fulfilled. Because if you're in a relationship where you just feel you're just a financial, like almost like an ATM, you're just there to contribute money and you're not seeing your growth, you're not seeing your future, obviously you're going to start to build resentment. So I think money is not an end in itself. It's a means. So we need to look at what do we need to achieve, what do we need to accomplish, what do you need to accomplish, what responsibilities do you have? And so when you look at the 50-50 split, when you look at it from, we are splitting in half. Responsibilities are different. You might be the firstborn and you've got a whole lot of people that you still need to look after, or your parents don't have pension. So there are a lot of dynamics to consider. And this is why couples need to have a conversation around money, but also be sensitive to the emotional needs of the other person. Allow the other person to grow, support them to grow, let them feel like they have a partner. We're in a partnership rather than we're in a transactional relationship.
That's an interesting one because, life happens and one of the key income earners can actually have a devastating thing that happens in their life, whether it's either they lose their job, maybe they become disabled, and then the dynamics change completely. So what if life happens? How do you actually adjust to that?
And I think that is why day-to-day is important. How are we working together? How are we planning for the future? Do we have emergencies? Right. So our financial literacy as a couple becomes very important. We need to be continually building our financial literacy so that we have a plan for debt repair. We have a plan for earning income should one of us not be able to earn income. What are the other sources of income that we're going to have? We have a plan. We're operating within a budget that we are, in agreement with. We're managing our day-to-day finances using principles that really work. We are investing for the future. What are we doing to invest for the future? We're also protecting what we're building. Do we have a will that's there? Do we have the health insurance? Do we have a legacy plan? So those things need to be in place. So financial literacy as a couple, not just individually. So couples need to be building their literacy together so that they can be building their dreams and their goals together.
For those couples who are trying to be more intentional about speaking about their finances and splitting their finances accordingly, what are some of the common pitfalls that they face when trying to implement what they've spoken about?
So I think values, right? So values, we don't always have the same values. So we want to be able to align those values. So no values is better than the other. But we sometimes think, your value is better. My value is better than yours. So let's go with my value. So I think it's a continuous alignment of values. But also money stories. Where do you come from? So we need to confront our money stories. I remember someone was sharing that, the guy is a CEO, he has done well, but he's still a penny pincher. He would not buy McDonald's for his kids. But the wife is like, but it's just McDonald's and we've got the money and we can afford it. So our financial stories, like the way you were socialized around money, will always come in and it can create conflicts. So I think it's confronting and appreciating, but it's also updating that operating model. Be willing to update the operating model to say, you know what, I'm here now. Things have happened to me. I might have grown up with less, or I may have grown up with lots. So if you grew up from a place where you were buying from opulence, you might also not be financially prudent because things were there for you. So it's really working on how do we upgrade our own operating model. And these pitfalls are there, different values, different beliefs, different financial stories, earning ability, right? Someone is working, someone is not working. All those things are things that we need to navigate in that present challenges in managing money as couples.
I know we're speaking about spending. Yeah. Do we introduce the budget here when it comes to the 50-50 conversation?
Sorry, how do you introduce the budget?
Yes.
So obviously you've got shared responsibilities, right? So that's where you start, right? What are the shared responsibilities and how do we share those? So whatever model of 50-50 you end up coming up with, whether it is a percentage of an income, whether it is you pay school fees, I pay this, or whether it is the actual split of the actual amount, depending on obviously the context, then each person needs to obviously have their money to spend, right? So if I want to buy shoes, I should now not feel like I'm stealing, or I should now not be. There must be. I know that when you're dealing with organizations, they'll say you can spend. Or I sit on quite a few. What is it? Board corporates where they say you can spend 10,000 without asking, right? So I don't want to be calling you every time I want to buy a shoe of 500 rand. And please, can I buy a shoe 500 rand? What is allowed? What is allowable to say? Oh, you can spend 5,000 without asking me. But beyond that, we need to have a conversation. So those are some of the things that couples need to actually have in place so that there's accountability. So accountability remains very important in the relationship.
Just your final tip of maybe something that we haven't touched on, Dr. Mazura?
I think it's something we've touched on. We underestimate financial literacy. Most of us think we know about finances, but we've never actually built a mindset of how we manage our finances and later on align it with your own partner. So people don't take financial, and even if you have a financial literacy course, for example, people don't show up because I'm like, I'm earning this money. I know what I'm doing. I'm an adult. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But researchers are showing, like Standard Bank is showing, people that are earning 700 to a million rand, most of them don't have an emergency fund.
Wow. Okay, Dr. Mavis, we have to leave it there. Thank you for giving us your time. Where can we get hold of you just quickly?
So I am on Facebook, Dr. Mavis Majura. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Mavis Majura. So you can connect with me on the socials.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us once again, always giving us very important, sober advice. Thank you for your time. That's Dr. Mavis Mazura, business science and performance specialist. This takes us to 11:30 Central African time. Let's wrap up our morning sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And a very good morning from the sports desk. For the final time this morning, we'll start your sports bulletin with this story. So 8 teams have qualified now for the quarterfinals of the ongoing CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Those 8 teams have been confirmed. They include the host nation Morocco, Zambia, Senegal, Nigeria, Algeria, South Africa, Ghana, as well as Mali. Now, following an intense as well as a gripping group stage, the tournament now moves into the knockout phase, officially starting this Friday with a coveted place in the semi-finals at stake. So first up on Friday will be the 9-time African champions Nigeria up against the 2022 bronze medalist Zambia. Will face off at the Labri Zaoule Stadium in the city of Casablanca. Also on Friday, Morocco, the host nation, taking on Mali at the Stade Olympique in the city of Rabat. Saturday, the action will start when Algeria face off with Ghana at the Bakan Stadium in the city of Bakan, while the defending champions South Africa will face off with Senegal at the Stade d'Honneur in the city of Oja, with places in the semi-finals up for grabs. Now, former Gambia national football team coach as well as player Sang Ndong is very delighted with the current state of the game in the West African country of the Gambia. Now, speaking to Channel Africa Sport, Ndong reflects on his tenure as the Scorpions' mentor.
I think we created
what is being utilized today, because as the national team coach, we had very limited professional playing for the Gambia. And by then, Senegal, Morocco all came back from World Cup and had to play against Gambia while I was the national team coach. And by then, we were counting about 3 or 4 national team players together with our home-based players. I can fully remember when Morocco, Haji and others went to the World Cup. They came back. I think their first game was against the Gambia here.
Now, meanwhile, despite the Gambia women's national football team's failure to qualify for the ongoing Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament in Morocco, Ndong remains optimistic with the status of the women's game in that country.
Yeah, the federation are doing everything possible to give support to women's football because we are presently registered in all the categories. Presently, our senior national team just beat past Niger, and we're playing against Kenya in September, and if they win, they'll be going to the finals. So the women's football, we're doing well. We just finished competing the under-20 national team also. So everything is working. And
on to tennis news now. Paula Badosa of Spain said she will be out of action for the next few weeks due to another back injury, leaving the world number 10 in a race to be fit for next month's US Open tournament. The Spanish former world number 2 has worked her way back into the top 10 this year after a string of injuries, including a chronic lower back issue, had also left her contemplating retirement. Badosa lost 6-2, 3-6 and 6-4 to Katie Bolton in the first round of Wimbledon earlier on this month, and in a statement on Monday said she had also suffered a tear in her psoas, the muscle which sort of connects the lower back to the top of the leg. So Badosa is now scheduled to play alongside Stefano Tsitsipas in the US Open revamped mixed doubles event, which will take place a week before the August 24th to September 7th singles main draw. And finally, in golf news, so when Rory McIlroy arrived at Royal Portrush about 6 years ago, it was meant to be a glorious homecoming for Northern Ireland's most famous sportsman, but his British Open hopes lasted only 2 rounds. Rory will now reach new heights as golf's oldest major returns to County Antrim's stunning Causeway Coast on Thursday, but this time around he insists he is better prepared to ride the wave. Around 275,000 fans will attend the 153rd Open this week, a figure only topped by St. Andrews. Now, a sizable majority will be rotating for the 36-year-old McIlroy as he tries also to lift the claret jug for a second time, having also first got his hands on it at the Royal Liverpool back in 2014. So the former world number 1 McIlroy completed a long overdue career slam when he edged out Ryder Cup teammate Justin Rose in a gripping Masters battle this year, ending an 11-year major drought. Dip also was perhaps not surprising, but the prospect of a return to Portrush Links, where he broke the course record as a 16-year-old, albeit of course a much remodeled one, has reignited the fire inside of him. And that concludes your morning sports news right here on Channel Africa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, call us on +2 7 11714 4459 or email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. It's 11:35 a.m. Central African Time for Channel Africa Sport. I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports. Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
All right, let's keep things moving with Buntle Headbush, who has our latest in business.
Business news
on Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
Thanks, Balisa. Good morning. The government of Botswana says it will allow its Bula currency to depreciate by 2.76% over the coming year. This is in an effort to enhance the competitiveness of domestic goods and services and also to protect foreign exchange reserves, which have shrunk steadily since 2018, reaching a record low of 5.2 months import cover in February. The Southern African country reviews its exchange rate twice a year, adjusting it upwards or downwards through a crawling band exchange rate regime under which the Bula is pegged. Senior economics lecturer at the University of Botswana, Ubunya Khalibutswe, explains why the country needs to change its exchange rate policy.
And the combination of slow economic growth, low export revenues, increase in imports, tends to put a downward pressure on the domestic currency. And the current exchange regime is such that the value of the Bula is determined not by the market forces of demand and supply, but rather it is determined by the government. So they have been putting it at a certain rate, but now with the foreign exchange reserves decreasing significantly over the last 3 years, this makes the exchange rate policy intervention unsustainable.
Zambia's State Mining Corporation is pushing for the U.S. to grant the country exemptions from proposed copper import duties. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump announced that his administration would impose a new 50% tariff on all copper imported into the U.S. from the 1st of August. Head of the Zambian Consolidated Copper Mines, Gaikenenwa Muyangwa, says the U.S. tariffs could undermine a major infrastructure initiative such as the Lobito Corridor project, which aims to facilitate the export of critical raw materials, particularly copper and cobalt. He explains the other adverse effects that this will have.
So essentially, what this will do to any company that's mining and refining within the United States is that it will push their prices up and they'll get more revenue. So this is the mining companies and the refining companies in the USA simply just playing along with politics on the basis of greed, because it does not make any sense. Besides them getting higher profits, there's going to be shortages of all these metals within the USA. And when they are going to be made available, they're going to be more expensive. So it really doesn't make sense.
Amid global and economic uncertainty, the South African Reserve Bank's Prudential Authority says there's vague information to quantify the potential impact of looming U.S. tariffs on South Africa's economy and financial system. This comes off as South African exporters face the threat of up to 30% tariffs from the beginning of next month. South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesitja Kganyago says the automotive and agricultural industries have been the most affected by the indecisive tariff announcements.
The problem is we do not know what the tariffs are because the announcements change all the time. And as a central bank, what we ended up doing was to do a what if. But two sectors that get affected in the main has been the automotive sector. And I've seen the figures from NAMSA late last week that said that our exports to the United States are down by 87%. And in agriculture, it's concentrated in particular agricultural products.
Meanwhile, South Africa's Automotive Business Council, NAMSA, has raised the alarm over escalating U.S. tariffs, warning that the 25% levy on vehicle exports, which took effect in April and is set to climb to 30% in August, could push South Africa's auto industry into a full-blown socioeconomic crisis. The country's Eastern Cape key automotive hubs, including East London, risk becoming ghost towns as production slows and jobs are threatened. However, NAMSA Chief Economist Dr. Paulina Mamokgobo says the car manufacturer's broad market reach and continued market diversification should help the sector continue to have market reach.
When we are hit by tariffs by the US, we are not the only market that has been hit by those tariffs. So if we are pivoting to Europe, we must understand that other markets like Thailand, maybe Vietnam, that are also impacted by the tariffs, they will also say, where else do we pivot our production? So there is intensifying competition. And I think that's what continues to put pressure as well in terms of us domestically. But it is the broadness of our export market reach that also gives us comfort that we will continue to be resilient.
Further afield, the founder of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, says the social media giant will spend hundreds of billions of dollars on building huge AI data centers. They will be named after figures from sci-fi and mythology like Prometheus and Hyperion. The BBC's Lily Jamali has the details.
One cluster will be almost as large as the island of Manhattan in New York City. Meta has made most of its money from online advertising. Now it's scrambling to compete in developing so-called super intelligence, technology that's smarter than humans. But the multi-gigawatt data centers announced by Mr. Zuckerberg Monday will burn through electricity at a steady clip. Critics argue the environmental costs of powering such data centers dwarf any benefit.
And in our final look at the indicators this morning, one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,527 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 20. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 54. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 16. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 56. Russia, 77 rubles 98. India, it's 85 rupees 89. China, 7 yuan 16. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 90 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,358 and platinum at $1,408 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $68.88 a barrel. And those are your business news at this hour. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In recent weeks, East Africa has seen a disturbing rise in human rights violations. In Kenya, digital activist Rose Njeri was arrested under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act after creating a tool for citizens to oppose the Finance Bill 2025. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan lawyer Agatha Atuhaire reported being detained, tortured, and sexually assaulted by security officers.
East Africa needs a reset. We need to get back East Africa to where the founding fathers are. You know, when President Nyerere and his colleagues, Jomo Kenyatta and the Ugandan counterparts fought for independence, they fought for independence to get Africans out of poverty, to get Africans out of slavery. The leaders who took up power have since gotten into regression.
Neto Agostino, co-leader of the United Green Movement Party.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Hello there, my name is Matsako Musito and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are on the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Tebogo Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebohole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are on the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Tebohole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebohole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are on the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Tebohole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebohole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are on the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Tebohole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebohole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are on the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Tebohole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebohole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us.
Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future.
Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are on the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African time.
Hey guys, Lulu Gaboo here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Lulu, and we are very happy to be here, so join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on
Tesani Nakusia, Lucky Star Musical Club. Before that gave you Angelique Kidjo with Lolo Vajiro, taking us away from all the time we have here on The Move this morning, but we don't leave you empty-handed. Lulu Gaboo is here to let us know what's coming up on today's Africa Update. Good morning, Lulu.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, so today we're going to be focusing on a number of big stories. The former Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari being laid to rest today, and also organizations. There we're going to be speaking to Collins Nusa Atuhengbe, our correspondent in Nigeria. And then coming back to South Africa, organizations and a number of political parties in South Africa have converged in Durban, marching in support of the province's police commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mm-hmm. So a lot being said, a lot of different opinions, and something that we'll unpack with a reporter there, Fani Nomfanelo, who's going to be joining us later in the program as the day progresses, because it is a story that has taken not only the country by storm, but a lot of internationals are focusing on how South Africa responds to this particular focus on the South African police service and political interference. So it is a big story. And then also we are going to be looking at speaking to Claude Naika, who is a PSA spokesperson. That's a Public Servants Association. They're calling on the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, to address corrupt activities within the South African police service. So from all directions, the president is getting calls and people basically wanting a solution. And a lot feel that the 6 months of a commission of inquiry is just not good enough. So we'll be unpacking a lot of that in Africa Update today.
Thank you, Lulu. Stay tuned to Channel Africa on www.channelafrica.co.za. Our audio bouquets, DSTV 802, OpenView 628, and the SABC Plus app for more on that African perspective. Have yourself a good day, Channel Africa family, and we'll be back tomorrow. Let's play you out with this one. It's titled titled African Beauty.
It's Chris with the drama by. We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African Time.
Hey guys, Tebogo Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African Time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebogo Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here, so join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African Time.
Hey guys, Tebogo Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African Time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebogo Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here, so join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African Time.
Hey guys, Tebogo Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African Time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebogo Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here, so join us. Hello there, my name is Matsheko Musito.
From Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Jwalani Tulongwepe, Figilele Ngwati and Nolutando Buthelezi. Coming up in this hour. The late former Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari to be laid to rest at his home today. And organizations and political parties in South Africa converge on Durban to march in support of the province's police commissioner. But first up, the news with Jwalani Tulongwepe and our sports headlines with Figilele Ngwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day.
Organisers of the hashtag Hands Off Mkhwanazi March in South Africa are demanding the protection of the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. They also say they reject President Cyril Ramaphosa's establishment of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry to probe Mkhwanazi's implication of senior police officials, including Minister Senzo Mchunu, in corruption and having links to criminal syndicates. Scores of residents groups and some political parties are participating in a march which is in support of Mkhwanazi. One of the organizers, Vincent Mdunge, says they view Mkhwanazi as a whistleblower who needs protection.
We are therefore supporting him in the view that we know that the attacks that are directed at him are simply intended to protect the criminal element, because there are ministers of parliament, including Senzo Mchunu, that are in cahoots with the criminals, that are sharing the same bed, that are on the back pocket of the criminal element. And we cannot trust a man like that. We want the president to do a complete overhaul of the justice cluster system. We are saying a political killings task team must be resuscitated, and we are saying the president is breaking the law. The Constitution of the Republic clearly says there shall be no two ministers of cabinet that are going to serve or be appointed in one portfolio.
A recent Human Sciences Research Council study in South Africa has revealed that public trust in the police has significantly declined. The study found that only 22% of citizens expressed trust in the police in 2022, with the 2023 and 2024 to 2025 confidence levels almost unchanged. HSRC senior researcher Dr. Ngapeli Mchunu.
What we've seen in our research is that events that relate to police, for example, such as Marikana and how the Marikana protests were handled and the force that was used, tends to have a negative effect on how South Africans view the police. We also saw the same in the 2021 riots, where people felt that the police were not proactive or they did not do enough to protect or to prevent the riots. So events of that nature tend to have a serious bearing and effect on citizens' views. So if events of that nature unfold and an image or perception is created that the police could have done better.
The Electoral Commission in South Africa is currently presenting a report on the 2024 general elections to Parliament. The report details the Commission's achievements in relation to managing the polls, including successfully integrating independent candidates into contesting national and provincial elections. Busi Bupela reports.
In its report, the IEC says it was able to make the smooth transition necessitated by a new electoral system which saw independent candidates contest general elections for the first time. Amongst the changes it was required to make were the rewriting of the ICT business applications, including the candidate nomination system and the results system, amongst others. With 70 political parties contesting alongside 11 independent candidates, the intensity of competition was unprecedented.
A Lesotho MP is facing criminal charges after he accused the country's monarch and government of signing over control of Lesotho to its much larger neighbour, South Africa. Dr. Tsepo Dipolo also faces charges of violating the dignity and reputation of the royal family by declaring himself the chief ruler of the landlocked country. Dipolo reportedly appeared in court yesterday to apply for bail, but this was postponed to a later date this month. The opposition MP has previously called for parts of South Africa to be declared Lesotho's territory and wants them returned to Lesotho's control. And finally, the world's largest human imaging project says it has now hit its target of scanning the brains, hearts and organs of 100,000 volunteers. UK Biobank has been working on the study for 11 years. The BBC's Jim Reid has the details.
The billion images it's created can be accessed at low cost by thousands of scientists. The scans are anonymised and volunteers receive no feedback unless a potentially serious health problem is spotted. They can be combined with DNA and other data to identify disease at an early stage and work out how best to prevent or treat it. Already it's been shown, for example, that drinking small amounts of alcohol each day can be linked to memory loss and dementia, and that a standard MRI scan can replace surgery to monitor liver disease.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. Headlines at 12:30 for Channel Africa News. I'm Cholani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, weightlifting athlete and coach Daniel Kadzav is switching his focus to local competitions after missing the Commonwealth Championship qualifications. And the former Gambia national football team player coach says he's delighted with the state of the game in the country. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Thank you to Jalani Tulongwepe with our news update and Figile Lingwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126. Hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on hashtag Africa Update Us, today is World Youth Skills Day. Now, what skills have been imparted to you, and what skills are you imparting to others? Let us know what your responses are on all our social media platforms. That's hashtag Africa Update Us. What skills have been imparted to you, and what skills are you imparting to others? Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet.
Channel 802.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons à présent dérouler notre tapis rouge pour accueillir notre personnalité du jour, l'artiste chanteur Sheky Frey, qui est en ligne de Guinée avec nous.
Je suis un artiste guinéen, un créateur, un styliste, et je fais un peu ce qui plaît à mes fans. Voilà, c'est un peu ça. On a beaucoup de genres de trucs à faire, mais bon, pour le moment, on est basé un peu sur le rap.
D'accord. À quelle période de votre vie avez-vous commencé à vous intéresser à la musique, Sheky?
Bon, je crois pas qu'il y ait une période, parce que moi, je suis un mélomane depuis mon petit âge.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected.
Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
SABC Sports brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. I'll stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 Central African Time on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Young couples or young people that are getting married, we often hear of divorces, that they're getting divorced, and it's quite worrying because when we attend these weddings, we want to see these people flourish and celebrate 30-year anniversaries. What do you think is the main challenge that is facing newlyweds?
We say that tell me how you were raised and I'll tell you how you love. So when we see people getting married, that's not where the relationship actually starts. The relationship starts with how you were raised, what you were familiar with, because we are attracted to what we are familiar with. If you don't have a background where love was prominent, where love was authentic, it's going to be very difficult for you to manufacture that in later life. So our upbringing has something to do with it.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom at channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And if you've missed any of our interviews, you can find them on www.channelafrica.co.za and go to the Africa Update link and find whatever it is that you missed out on. That is Africa Update, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Our former Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari will be laid to rest at his home in Katsina State. The government has declared today a public holiday to honor the late president. To speak to us about this, we are joined on the line by our correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nusa Atohengbe. Collins, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update, and condolences to you and all Nigerian citizens.
Thank you very much. We mourn Buhari's passing. It's very tragic, but then for every mortal, there's an end. So time on earth. So that's what has happened to Buhari.
And what's the latest, Collins, regarding his burial?
Right now, dignitaries are gathering at Daura, his home place, where he will be buried, and his body is expected to land there from Abuja any moment from that. Senate committee, delegation from the Senate, delegation from the presidency, political party, that's the All People's Congress, under which he served as president, and other political and socio-cultural relationship where they are there, his family members are there too. So this is what is going on right now. There will be a brief military honor for him as a general.
All right, we're going to just end that conversation with Collins Nusa Atohengbe. The line is not the greatest. While we try and get him back on the line, he was just giving us an update on what is to happen with regards to the burial of the former president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, who is expected to arrive at any moment now. A number of political parties are there. Opposition party members are there and in his hometown of Katsina State, and government officials also being there. It would have been interesting to continue with Collins, and hopefully we'll be able to do that, especially with wanting to touch on the mourning period that has been put in place for 7 days, and what it means, especially with the fact that there is no state funeral. So all of that, hopefully we'll get Collins back on a better connection and unpack that for you. It is 12:15 Central African Time, and you're listening to Africa Update.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Marches are taking place in South Africa's coastal city of Durban in support for the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The Hands Off Mkhwanazi march follows similar ones by the MK Party and Action SA. Mkhwanazi implicated the country's police minister and other senior officers in organised crime, leading to the police minister being put on special leave. Now, the Deputy Police Minister, Poli Bushielo, weighs in on Senzo Mkhunu's placement on special leave.
In terms of the law, the Deputy Ministers can be appointed as acting ministers. They can only, if maybe there is a reshuffle, then they can be appointed. But for now, in terms of the law, we can't appoint a Deputy Minister. And in terms of what is happening in the department, as everything is going as normal as it should. As we saw yesterday, we went to court. As I'm talking to you today, I'm in Cape Town. We've got some committee work and then the sitting that we are attending. On Thursday, we are presenting our budget of SAPS, IPT, and civilian secretariat to the MCOP. So everything is fine. We're waiting for the acting minister to start working with. Yes, we have spoken to our staff to say, not everything is out of hand. They must just concentrate on their work, focus, help our people in terms of the Constitution number 205 on what the police are expected to do. I cannot lie to you, the morale is a little bit low, because we work very well with the minister. As you know, you'll see us 3-3 every time going together because we're trying to show each other how best can we be able to make the SAPS to be a better institution. But we are going on.
That was South Africa's Deputy Police Minister, Poli Bushielo, ending that report.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
South Africa's incoming police minister, Feroz Kachalia, says the current marches across the country in support of the KwaZulu-Natal's Provincial Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi are positive. He says this shows people are demanding action and that government has to respond. Now, this comes after explosive revelations made by Mkhwanazi about the high-ranking police officers' interference in criminal investigations, as well as the police minister, Senzo Mkhunu's links to drug and criminal cartels. The revelations and the President Cyril Ramaphosa's reaction have sparked protests in different parts, with more expected in the coming days. Kachalia spoke to our reporter Dimakazo Lishoro and told her that he will be meeting with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, adding that he supports the President's decision to establish a judicial commission of inquiry.
The dissatisfaction that is being expressed and the admiration for General Mkhwanazi, what he has done, is just an indication of public sentiment. What does it say to me? It says to me that our people want and demand action. And the government has to be responsive. We have to be listening. We have to be hearing what people are saying and doing our best to address their concerns. People need to be angry, but people also have to ensure that their anger is informed and reasoned. Serious allegations in unusual circumstances was made by the general in public. Nobody here, I certainly don't, really knows the facts. We don't know whether there is any basis at all to what the General Mkhwanazi has said in public. So there needs to be a fact-finding process, a reliable fact-finding process. Now, are judges not trusted in our society to make findings of fact? They have to make findings of fact. That's their expertise. They made findings of fact and law. when they go into court. That's what judges do.
I guess there's fatigue around commissions of inquiry because from the public point of view, there doesn't seem to be anything done about the recommendations from those.
Well, I know a lot of people are saying that. Certainly, I understand the frustration. I think the frustrations of the public are not so much about commissions of inquiry. They are about the fact that the feeling is that crime is getting worse, insecurity is growing, and corruption is not being dealt with because there's a lack of accountability. That's what our people are worried about. And that's what our political leaders have to respond to. That's what we must listen to, because our people are right about that. Listen, we want safety and security. There is too much crime. There are problems in service delivery at police stations. There is too much violent crime. There's growing organized crime, and now there are allegations which are not new and which are long suspected that there is corruption in high places, including in the police. Now, of course, the people are frustrated. They should be frustrated, and it's important that they make their
You've
feelings
got a lot of experience.
known.
I mean, you've been an MEC in Gauteng before. You've been involved with the Anti-Corruption Council. How are you going to approach the sort of divisions within the SAPS amongst themselves and to just engender confidence amongst the police themselves to do their job and knowing that there won't be any interference?
The police, who are professional police officers, who are doing a difficult job, they will know that I am their best supporter. I am going to be going out there to bat for them. I'm going to support them. Those who do not adhere to the standards that the police require are not supposed to be in the police. My responsibility is a political one. I am not confused about that. I have to respect their professional judgment and autonomy, and I will do that. I have to start by talking with the people who are in senior positions of responsibility in the South African Police Service. That's where I'm going to start.
Are you going to be meeting with General Mkhwanazi as well?
Absolutely. But I will. I mean, that's my feeling that I should do that. But I want to talk to the National Commissioner first to get his advice and input about what the next step should be. He might have a different view from me, and then we'll have a discussion. But at this point, I think, let me put it this way, I feel I should, in this moment, prioritize KwaZulu-Natal.
In terms of starting your job on the 1st of August, are you going to be bringing a new team admin? Because there's an issue about the minister has been suspended, you will be acting, and he already had a team in place.
That was South Africa's incoming police minister, Feroz Kachalia, speaking to Dimakatso Lishoro.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
South Africa's Public Servants Association is calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to address corrupt activities within the South African Police Service. Now, the PSA says besides calling for the removal of the police minister, Senzo Mchunu, there needs to be a thorough investigation into the allegations raised by the provincial commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. I beg your pardon. To discuss this further, we are joined on the line by Claude Naicker, a PSA spokesperson. Claude, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Very good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, Claude, the president on Sunday evening announcing that the police minister was going on leave of absence immediately. Now, do you accept this decision by the president, and what do you think he could have said differently or done differently if that's the case?
Well, look, I think firstly, let me say, I think South Africans on the whole have been waiting patiently for somebody to just stand up and say, listen, we have dirty cops in our system. We have a lot of corrupt officials that are senior public servants that are simply doing a disservice to the country. And I think the allegation that was made by the provincial commissioner was like a breath fresh air to all South Africans. And I think once again, I think if you ask any South African, everybody knew exactly what the state president was going to do. One is to either place him on special leave or ordinarily move him to a different portfolio. Fortunately, the latter did not occur. He just placed him on special leave. And the second issue was to obviously institute a judicial
commission of inquiry. I think 99% of South Africans would have guessed that's what the president was going to do. So this tells you that nothing has changed in the past when allegations of corruption surface. We looked at PIC, the Public Service or the General Employees Pension Fund, when a commission was established. To date, we have not seen any convictions in that. The Zondo Commission, to date, we have not seen any convictions in that. So how can one blame an ordinary South African for saying, do they have any belief, do they have any confidence in any commission of inquiry that has been established? So we've heard during the term or the tenure of the current president that nothing new has happened or nothing new is going to take place in order to tackle fraud and corruption. The president, year in, year out, churns out the same messages to South Africans. Surely by now he would have realized that all these South Africans do not take him seriously when he makes comments or he makes statements regarding tackling fraud and corruption. A simple example was the Minister of Justice involved in serious allegations, and he moved it to a different portfolio. Yet you fire a minister for not getting authorization to take an overseas trip. So where does our priorities lie? I think all in all, and you've seen the support. I just come off the news now and we see there's a huge march that is taking place in KZN. It's about time that I think, like the Public Servants Association articulated, that ordinary civil servants, ordinary civilians need to stand up and expose those that are depleting our financial resources and robbing the most vulnerable of basic necessities like water, electricity, and just an increase in income grants, because this is where all the fraud and corruption ends up, and our financial resources become depleted, and we cannot sustain and we cannot do basic things in our country. So as the Public Servants Association, we believe that the minister or the president rather, has dropped the ball once again. All he's done is just kick the can down the road, which he has done in the past.
Now, the PSA, you're calling for the president to reshuffle cabinet and to remove all the ministers who have been allegedly involved in corruption. Will you be following up with this in the future?
Absolutely, absolutely. We will be writing to the president and articulating our views that is just churning from one portfolio to another instead of getting rid of them itself. I think it's about time we take decisive action. And the only way that we can do this is that all of us stand up and say to the president, President, enough is enough. We've had enough about maladministration and corruption, not only in the public sector, but the country as a whole. You'll see the vast amounts of money that is spent or being eroded or being collected by a few individuals while the rest of the country suffer without having basic amenities itself. I think it's about time that the president looks at his decision and say to himself, listen, did I do the right decision itself? We're all aware that allegations are mere allegations unless it's been tested. But you've seen the minister make terrible mistakes in interviews where he indicated that he doesn't know certain individuals, and later at the backtrack and says, yes, I've met him, he probably is an acquaintance or a comrade itself. Surely on the basis of that alone, the president should have got rid of him or fired him and said to him, this is unacceptable. Being leader in the police services and you make such utterance was obviously absolute nonsense.
Now, Claude, since the announcement on Sunday, some South Africans have lambasted the president and some are even calling for his resignation. What do you think of these calls?
Look, it's justified. You would think that ordinary South Africans are fed up now of crime and maladministration. And I think the wheel's slowly turning to say, listen, you'll find more South Africans standing up and taking a stand and saying, listen, we've had enough now. You need to do something. You need to have political will in order to tackle crime and corruption. We cannot get the Cape Flats right for so many years simply because we have so many dirty cops in the system.
Well, Claude, we have run out of time and are going to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That's Claude Naika, the Public Servants Association spokesperson, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 Central African time, and our news headlines up next with Jalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News, Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day. Making headlines. South Africa's incoming acting police minister, Firoz Kachalia, says the current marches across the country in support of KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi are positive. He says this shows people are demanding action and the government to respond. The medical charity Doctors Without Borders says Ethiopian Federal Forces executed 3 of its staff during the war in the northern region of Tigray. A report following the charity's own review of the incident suggests the 3 were killed intentionally and at point-blank range while facing their attackers. And finally, a Lesotho MP is facing criminal charges after he accused the country's monarch and government of signing over control of Lesotho to its much larger neighbour, South Africa. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you to Jalani Tulongwepe with our headlines, and we say good afternoon to Figile Lingwati with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Lulu. We begin with weightlifting this hour. Weightlifting athlete and coach Daniel Kazave says he's switching focus to local competitions, having missed out on qualification for the Commonwealth Championship in India next month. The 32-year-old was back on the platform with the hope that he'd reignite his dream of representing South Africa again. Kazave is a former Gauteng weightlifting title holder who is now a personal trainer in Johannesburg and is also part of the Provincial Development Committee. He says his Commonwealth journey ended.
I was angling, but I had to step back a little bit I had other personal things going on still, so was just out of reach of the qualifications. But I'll be looking forward to competing and putting a bit more effort into nationals, and then maybe push for next year's African champs.
On to football news. Former The Gambia national football team player and coach Sang Dong is fairly delighted with the current state of the game in the West African country, the Gambia. Speaking to Channel Africa Sport, Ndong reflects on to his tenure as the Scorpions' mentor.
I think we created what is being utilized today, because as the national team coach, we had very limited professional playing for the Gambia. And by then, Senegal, Morocco all came back from World Cup and had to play against Gambia while I was the national team coach. And by then, we were counting about 3 or 4 national team players together with our home-based players. I can fully remember when Morocco, Haji and others went to the World Cup. They came back. I think their first game was against the Gambia here.
Meanwhile, despite the Gambia women's national team failure to qualify for the ongoing WAFCON in Morocco, Ndong remains optimistic with status of the women's game.
Yeah, the federation are doing everything possible to give support to women's football, because we are presently registered in all the categories. Presently, our senior national team just beat past Niger, and we're playing against Kenya in September. And if they win, they'll be going to the finals. So the women's football, we're doing well. We just finished competing the under 20 national team also. So everything is working. And
let's end with golf news. When Rory McIlroy arrived at the Royal Portrush 6 years ago, it was meant to be a glorious homecoming for Northern Ireland's most famous sportsman, but his British Open hopes lasted only 2 rounds. Rory will reach new heights as golf's oldest major returns to country's Antrim stunning Caseway Coast on Thursday. But this time, he insists he is better prepared to ride the wave. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
So when you think of African music, you think of Kwasa Kwasa, high life from West Africa, Afrobeat from West Africa, of gospel music, of faith music or spiritual music. But when we think of reggae music, we go to the Caribbean, and if it's Africa, we only think about Lucky Dube. Well, I'm here to introduce you to some reggae music from Africa. Salif Keita with Dakan Fair from Mali. And I must say, this one was a real shock for me because I never had imagined Salif Keita on a reggae beat. But listening to him, it just proved to me how versatile he is as an artist because you'd be expecting him to be on that vibe of West Africa, of ballads. But he really proved that he is very versatile. And I was pleasantly surprised.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
It is 12:36 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Thank you to Fikile Lungwati with our sports update. And we say good afternoon to Nolutando Butelezi with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu, and good afternoon. South Africa and China will get to cement their strong bilateral ties. Deputy President Paul Mashatile has arrived in China for a strategic working visit. He has been invited by the chairman of the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, and he is also scheduled to participate in the China International Supply Chain Expo and launch the South African National Pavilion. This year's International Supply Chain Expo is the world's first national-level expo dedicated to global supply chains. Kayelihle Kumalo has more.
This visit presents a significant opportunity to advance the South Africa-China all-round strategic cooperative partnership in the new era. It also reinforces South Africa's position as a gateway to sub-Saharan Africa for trade, investment, and industrial cooperation. Deputy President Mashatile will also hold a bilateral meeting with his Chinese counterpart, Han Zhang. The Deputy President is set to meet with China State Construction, Engineering Corporation, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China in partnership with Standard Bank and the Beijing Automotive International Corporation.
Amid global economic uncertainty, the South African Reserve Bank's Prudential Authority says that there's vague information to quantify the potential impact of looming U.S. tariffs on South Africa's economy and financial system. This comes as South African exporters face the threat of up to 30% tariffs from the beginning of next month. South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says that the automotive and agricultural industries have been the most affected by the indecisive tariff announcements.
The problem is we do not know what the tariffs are because the announcements change all the time. And as a central bank, what we ended up doing was to do a what if. But two sectors that gets affected in the main has been the automotive sector. And I've seen the figures from NAMSA late last week that said that our exports to the United States are down by 87%. And in agriculture, it's concentrated in particular agricultural products.
South Africa's Automotive Business Council, NAMSA, has raised the alarm over escalating U.S. tariffs, warning that the 25% levy on vehicle exports, which took effect in April, is set to climb to 30% in August, could push South Africa's auto industry into a full-blown socio-economic crisis. The country's Eastern Cape's key automotive hubs, including East London, risk becoming ghost towns as production slows and jobs are threatened. However, NAMSA chief economist Dr. Paulina Mamuhobo says that the car manufacturers' board, market reach and continued market diversification should help the sector continue to have market reach.
When we are hit by tariffs by the US, we are not the only market that has been hit by those tariffs. So if we are pivoting to Europe, we must understand that other markets like Thailand, maybe Vietnam, that are also impacted by the tariffs, they will also say, where else do we pivot our production? So there's intensifying competition. And I think that's what continues to put pressure as well in terms of us domestically. But it is the broadness of our export market reach that also gives us comfort that we will continue to be resilient.
South Africa's E-Hailing Partners Council says that the decision by some e-hailing companies to increase the commission taken from operators and drivers is having an extremely negative impact on their take-home salaries. Dozens of operators have embarked on a protest in Johannesburg today, where they are voicing their concerns at Uber's head office in Parktown. The disgruntled operators say that they are unhappy about a number of work-related issues, including alleged changes to Uber's commission percentages and unprofitable trip prices. Spokesperson for the E-Hailing Partners Council, Zisco Mnguni.
Bolt and Uber now, the transporting prices are very low, but when it comes to a commission, it's become 50-50 between app owners and the driver. So now the commission is very high, and compared to the money that we are being paid by the passengers, the money is low, and then the commission is very high, and the petrol as well. At least if they can drop their commission maybe to go to 20%, and then it will meet us as drivers. It is better than what they are doing.
Chinese companies are scrambling to buy NVIDIA's H20 artificial intelligence chips, as the company said it planned to resume sales to the mainland days after its CEO met US President Donald Trump. NVIDIA's AI chips have been a key focus of US export controls designed to keep the most advanced chips out of Chinese hands over national security concerns. The US-listed company has said that the curbs would cut its revenue by $15 billion. The world's most valuable firm says it is filing applications with the US government to resume sales to China and expects to get the licenses soon. In the financial indicators now, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,527 naira. In Botswana, it's 13.20 Kenya. The dollar is trading at 128 shilling 54, and in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 16. In the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 56. Russia is 77 rubles 98. India, it's 85 rupees 89. China, it's 7 yuan 16. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 90 cents. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,360 and platinum at $1,367 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $69.06 a barrel. For any business stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business News, I am Nolutando Butelezi.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Oh, thank you to Nolutando Butelezi with our business news. It is 12:44 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, today is World Youth Skills Day, and according to the latest statistics by OECD, Africa's working age population is expected to grow by over 450 million. Youth empowerment through AI and digital skills is a crucial call to action. And to speak to us further, we are joined on the line by Rudy Kwake, Ghana executive producer for Afro Nation Ghana Festival and the founder and chairman of Muse Media Networks. Rudy, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update. Rudy, are you there? All right, so we seem to have lost that connection to Rudy. We will try and get him back on the line just to unpack for us what strides he's made in tech and digital, in terms of speaking to that, especially when it comes to the youth, not only in Ghana but just across the African continent. You're listening to Africa Update, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix. Anaitwa Daniel Etienne Benson. Huyu alizaliwa mwaka 1997, ilikuwa Mei 14, na anajulikana kitaalamu kabisa kwa jina la muziki BNXN. Haya, ni mwanamuziki huyo, ni mwimbaji kutoka nchini Nigeria, mtunzi wa nyimbo na mtayarishaji wa record label. Ameshirikiana na Rema kwenye wimbo huu. Rema vile vile ni msanii kutoka huko nchini Nigeria. Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Rudy, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update. We lost you there for a second or two.
Yes.
Now, Rudy, despite significant strides made by tech and digital players across the continent, what are we still lacking?
I think it has to do with more infrastructure in terms of digital infrastructure to actually put these skills to work. Now, I'll give you a view of, say, Ghana. We've had mobile penetration over 100% for close to a decade. So technically, people are walking around with 2 phones or 2 numbers in their pockets. But at the other side of that is that you have a smartphone penetration which is less than 60%. So, and smartphone is really where digital skills really come to play. So yes, we can make calls. Everybody has 2 phones, but really plugging into where digital systems are today, Internet of Things, data systems, there's a lag in that side. So that infrastructure needs to come online to enable a lot more people tap into access. So yes, there's been massive growth, there's been massive training systems. In the creative sector where I work, the digitization has been incredibly cutting neck at this moment. Almost all our systems are. Hitherto where I needed to have 100 people face to face working through shows and running productions. We really just running like any other business. We're working across time zones and building a show from ground up until the time is up, and then you just go and set the show up and you do the in real life part, and that's enabled by these digital systems.
So how can Africa, build scalable intracontinental structures to support mobility, innovation, and employment in the creative in the creative industries, especially with 70% of people on the African continent made up by the youth?
And I think that's really where the opportunity lies. Also, we need to stop at the national level being afraid of technology. And I say it this way, there's too many silos. We have too many systems that are not talking to each other. Everybody is trying to build a complete ecosystem on their own when we should be sharing resources to enable very simple things to happen. Let's take continental Europe. A single passport takes you through all the borders. And as a creative person, I can run a tour without a single currency enables me to run a toll. Again, my P&L is the same, my account and my spreadsheets. And then I come to Africa. We've been trying to build a touring circuit at Arts Connect Africa. And we have arbitrage problems, different currencies, systems that don't talk to each other, and, still acting like jealous girlfriends, everybody protecting their turf. When there's already a bleed point, it's not something you can stop. And I got to commend countries like yours and mine, right? Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, that are removing the borders by doing visa-free systems that allow for travel. And those things actually enable technology, because we're getting into a space where you can walk into Ghana with you already can walk into Ghana with your MTN number. Yes, it's roaming is still tethered to your country, but we're getting to a place where it will become a single network where your number in South Africa should work with MTN in Ghana as a local number. Now think of what a huge possibility that will be, because I'm not thinking acquiring new systems or getting into a country, getting a new SIM, getting local data. Like, I'm not thinking like that. It's a barrier for entry. It's a barrier that prevents me from scaling. So I think it's to build those skills. It's actually there. We have the components. We just need to sit on a table and have a very clear decision point that says, this central government is talking, this central bank is talking to this, and this technology authority is talking to this technology. How do we enable data share? How do we enable data travel? How do we enable our systems to talk to each other? Rather than putting small clusters and everybody having a closed off, and then the user has to re-enter themselves into the system all over again. Like, come on.
So, Rudy, we have run out of time, but I have to ask this very quickly as we wrap up. How do we then position the African youth being at the center of digital and creative governance?
I think it's the last 5 years across the continent has told us that that cliche statement we make, the youth is the future. Well, the future is actually taking the future back today. It's happening in Ghana with our elections last year, which was heavily driven by young people. Nigeria, Kenya, you're tracking what is going there. There's outspokenness about being a young person and tools that enable for conversation. So Nigerians are tracking what's happening in Kenya and seeing, okay, where did we get wrong with our protests? This is the way to go. The same thing, and then you are looking at it. So from a positioning point, I think that older generation, or that generation that's in front of me, needs to be able to tell themselves that the world has changed. The world belongs to the guys behind. So we better play their game. I think we're all playing the AI game right now, because you can't move 2 steps without it. And it doesn't matter how purist you are, and I want to do things the old way. Listen, the old ways are gone. It's a brave new world.
All right, Rudy, thank you so much for your time on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
You're welcome.
That's Rudy Kwaike, Ghana executive producer for AfroNation Ghana Festival and founder and chairman of Muse Media Networks, joining us on the line.
For Mandela, life was about making a difference, not just living. This Mandela Day, Channel Africa honors that legacy.
It is for humanity, or for society, to decide how I should remember. I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying.
On Channel Africa,
The African Perspective.
Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. Well, it is that time of the day where we say it's a happy Tuesday, and good afternoon to Tabukhulu Kuleni of the Upside team. What's coming up today?
Good
Hello.
afternoon, Lulu. Before we get into what's coming up on the show, I understand it's World Youth Skill Day.
Skills Day, yeah.
If there's a specific skill that I would love the youth to learn, it's sales. Sales skills can be applied across
the board.
The entire board. Whether you're a doctor, an engineer, at some point you have to sell yourself. You have to. That doesn't sound right, but you have to.
You have to.
Yes.
In the literal sense, you have to sell yourself.
You have to sell yourself.
The recruitment process means you sit in front of one individual or a number of individuals, and you are telling them about yourself and 100%. Why they should hire you. So that's 100%. A sales pitch right there.
100%. Yes. Across the board, and also in life in general. If you're unhappy with the service whether you're buying something at a restaurant, you're unhappy with the service, you can better articulate yourself by selling yourself better. If you want a refund, if you want someone to go out with you, you need to be able to learn how to position yourself in a favorable light. So skills.
Very key. Yeah, I think also for me, it would be for the youth, not only of South Africa, but the African continent. Nobody owes you anything.
Oh, 100%. Ooh.
Nobody owes you anything. The days of Hubloma Ekoneni, those days are gone.
Yeah.
It's up to you to take up some sort of skill or be a part of something that 100%. Will build you to get to where you want to get to.
I love that.
Yeah, because honestly, I think it's unfortunate, but young people, a lot of young people today feel they are owed something, and entitlement is a big challenge.
So entrepreneurship. And then maybe we can add tax as well. Not let out to do taxes, guys.
Yeah. But what's coming up?
Here's what's coming up on the show this afternoon. Our first conversation concerns those who are struggling with double chins. Whether because of aging, not you, you don't qualify for this, Lulu. So whether it's because of aging or weight gain, there are people or hereditary. People struggle with double chins. We want to find out if there are any non-invasive procedures that we could apply to reduce those double chins. And there is fat freezing now. We'll be chatting to the owners and founders of Cool Sculpting when it comes to cool therapy and reducing that double chin in a non-surgical invasive way. And then we get into a conversation with our authors this evening, journeying through love, loss, and language through their book. And then we get into conversation with director Michael James about his latest film. It's called God's Work, highlighting the struggles that humanity is dealing with right now and how we can lend a more sympathetic ear to the plights of the human beings, especially on the African continent. That's all coming up on the upside this afternoon.
Definitely something to look forward to on the upside with Tebogo Likuleni and Matsiko Musito. Well, for myself, Lulu Gaboo and the Africa Update team, it's been a good day, and continue with us on our social media platforms, and we will do this again tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
For Mandela, life was about making a difference, not just living. This Mandela Day, Channel Africa honors that legacy.
It is for humanity, or for society, to decide how I should be remembered. I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying.
On Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon. I'm Jolani Tulongwebe. South Africa's incoming acting police minister Firoz Kachalia says the current marches across the country in support of KwaZulu-Natal's Provincial Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi are positive. He says this shows people are demanding action and the government has to respond. This comes after explosive revelations made by Mkhwanazi about high-ranking police officers' interference in criminal investigations, as well as the police minister Senzo Mchunu links to drug and criminal cartels. The revelations and the President Cyril Ramaphosa's reaction have sparked protests in different parts, with more expected in the coming days. Kachalia, who will take up his post in August, says a meeting with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is of priority to him and has supported the President's decision to establish a judicial commission of inquiry.
People need to be angry, but people also have to ensure that their anger is informed and reasoned. Serious allegations in quite unusual circumstances was made by the general in public. Nobody here, I certainly don't, really knows the facts. So there needs to be a fact-finding process, a reliable fact-finding process. Are judges not